Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our mayor, Buddy Dyer.
Good afternoon and welcome to the September 15, 2016 meeting of the Orlando City Council. We're going to begin today's proceedings with the invocation, and it will be offered by Reverend Rick Luoni, who has served as the rector at St. Michael's Episcopal Church since September of last year. St. Michael's happens to be catty corner across from my house. He's originally from West Virginia and graduated from Concord College, earning a bachelor's degree in business management. And prior to his call to the ministry, he spent many years as a business executive and owner in advertising, marketing, and television. He has his Master of Divinity from San Francisco Theological Seminary. He has served many diverse roles, including a prison ministry, Alcoholics Anonymous, and leadership training roles for Episcopal churches. His ministry philosophy is simple: love God, love each other, and serve the world. Here's something really cool. He is a 5th degree black belt. How many pastors do you know? Well, it goes with the outfit. Right? And he once owned a Chuck Norris karate school.
Oh, gosh.
So we may have a demonstration after council, maybe. But putting that aside, I attended service at St. Michael's the Sunday after Pulse. And Father Rick delivered a very powerful sermon, and you probably all remember that Sunday after Pulse was Father's Day, so I think everybody dispensed with their Father's Day sermons and had a little bit different sermon, but I've used some of his words from that day. He said that God has anointed Orlando with the power to shine against hatred and to embrace diversity and equality and fairness. So I have used that over and over, Father Rick, so thank you for that. And please offer your invocation. We'll have the meeting led by Commissioner Hill afterwards. You may stand or sit as you choose.
Always like to begin with a moment of silence, followed by prayer. So let us have a moment of silence. Oh, gracious and beautiful God, you are here, and we are here. May we be here together. We give you thanks on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for many abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for health, wisdom, and gifts necessary to fulfill our callings. Thank you for the opportunity and the ability to serve in useful work and for the good of Orlando. Thank you for your presence, for your wisdom, and for your unending love, mercy, and grace. Thank you for you are here. Your scriptures commend us to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for Buddy, our mayor, for the various city officials, and in particular for this council. I ask that you graciously grant them wisdom to govern in the midst of the challenges and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a hunger and thirst for justice and righteousness, faith to do which is good and fitting, for unity even when there is disagreement, and for personal peace in their lives and joy in the task at hand. I especially pray for the agenda set for them today. Please give them an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city, Orlando. May your good and perfect dream be done here on earth, here in Orlando, as in heaven. Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Father Rick. Madam Clerk, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would you please call the roll?
Yes, Your Honor. Mayor. Bad habit. Commissioner Gray.
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Here.
Commissioner Stewart.
Here.
Commissioner Sheehan.
Here.
Commissioner Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Ings.
Here.
Mayor Dyer.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay, somebody's phone went off during the invocation, so I would ask that everybody else, and you too, Commissioner Stewart, if you'd.
Mine's already off,
Okay, let's all
Mine's
check and
already
see that
off.
they're off.
but somebody's up
Unless
here.
it's
so
got a
it's
country
off.
music ringtone. Okay, let's take up the minutes from agenda review and city council from the 29th of August.
Second.
Who was that, Commissioner Hill?
I think it was Commissioner Ortiz.
Commissioner Ortiz, did you get, okay. Motion by Commissioner Ortiz, second by Commissioner Sheehan. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. We're right into awards and presentations. So the first will be declaring September 11th through the 17th as International Housekeeping Week. Thomas Chapman's going to do the intro.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. The International Executive Housekeeping Association has designated, as the Mayor just said, September 11th through 17th of this year as International Housekeeping Week. Of course, we're all aware of the enormous and very significant impact that Central Florida's, that the hospitality industry has on Central Florida's economy and economic prosperity through the support of tourism, sales tax revenues, direct and indirect employment, and many other things. With us today is Kevin Craig, who is Public Policy Director of the Central Florida Hotel and Lodging Association, as well as Pat Baird of CFHLA's Housekeeping Council. I would like to recognize them now, have them stand if you would, and just thank them for the role that they play in supporting tourism in general. And particularly to the role they play in supporting downtown's tourism. Mayor and Commissioners, we have some 1,600 hotel rooms right here in downtown Orlando, and just in the first quarter of this year, more than 122,000 guests spent a night right here in downtown Orlando. So that's very, very important to us. And at this point, Mayor, I'd like to ask you to read the proclamation.
City of Orlando proclamation. Whereas the hospitality industry has a significant impact on Central Florida's economic prosperity, and whereas over 66 million visitors traveled to Orlando in 2015, generating more than $60 billion in economic impact, and whereas the Central Florida Hotel and Lodging Association is the world's largest regional lodging association and represents approximately 75% of all hotel rooms in Orange County, and whereas an important factor in securing return visitors to Central Florida is the high quality of customer service and hard work produced by Central Florida's housekeeping and custodial staff, and whereas the mission of the International Executive Housekeepers Association is to provide members with an array of channels through which they can achieve personal and professional growth, and whereas the IEHA has designated September 11th through the 17th to recognize the efforts of its hardworking members. Now, therefore, I, Buddy Dyer, Mayor of the City of Orlando, hereby do proclaim September 11th through the 17th, 2016, as International Housekeeping Week in the City of Orlando.
All right, thank you.
I was just telling the ladies that one year to celebrate International Housekeeping Week, I worked as a housekeeper for the day over at the Boheme. It's hard work, I can tell you that. Okay, Marcia, you are next up for Hunger Action Month.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners, colleagues and guests. This afternoon, we are very honored and pleased once again to recognize and acknowledge Hunger Action Month in our city by having the Mayor present a proclamation. But before Mayor Dyer reads the proclamation, I would like to ask my colleague and fellow community action person who's always out in the community, Greg Hickerson, who is Vice President of Development for Second Harvest Food Bank, to come up, and he's representing Dave Krepko, who was planning to be here but got called away, to give a brief overview about the importance of this very special recognition. Greg?
Thank you, Marcia. Good afternoon, everyone. Mayor Dyer, Commissioners, thank you so much for, on behalf of the Second Harvest Food Bank of Central Florida's Board of Directors, volunteers, staff, partner feeding programs, and literally more than 500,000 of our neighbors in Central Florida who find it necessary to seek assistance with food at some point during every year. We're talking about seniors, we're talking about kids, we're talking about struggling families, all of whom have an uphill climb without such a basic need as food. In Hunger Action Month, we seek to shine a light on that and call the community to action, call people to take an action. And if you don't know what to do, please visit our website at feedhopenow.org. There is a 30-day calendar, 30 ways in 30 days, and you can literally do something every single day this month that would have an impact on hunger if you are so inclined. As part of Hunger Action Month, we have something very fun happening right now called the Skip a Meal Challenge. And I'd just like to tell you about that real briefly. It starts by skipping a meal and experiencing for a very short time what someone without food might be feeling. Then taking the food money that you might have spent on your lunch and donating that to Second Harvest Food Bank so that we can continue to provide more food for our neighbors in need. And then create a short video and post that on social media that shows other people that you're taking an important action, and challenge three other people to do so. It's sort of a pay-it-forward type activity that is really making a difference this month. And at this time, I'd like to challenge Mayor Dyer to take the Skip a Meal Challenge and to read our proclamation.
Okay, I'll accept that challenge, as it turns out, and I, in turn, am going to challenge all 6 of our city commissioners to take that same challenge. Not that any of them need to skip any meals for any other reason, but, all right, everybody in?
Okay.
All right, good deal.
I like this better than the ice bucket thing a lot.
Okay, proclamation, City of Orlando. Whereas hunger and poverty are issues of great concern in the City of Orlando and throughout the United States, and whereas the City of Orlando is committed to taking steps to raise awareness about the need to combat hunger in every part of our state and to provide additional resources that Central Florida residents need, and whereas City of Orlando is committed to working with the Second Harvest Food Bank to educate our residents about the role and importance of food banks, and whereas struggling families and individuals in Central Florida sought assistance in receiving food nearly 4 million times last year, and whereas in fiscal 15-16, Second Harvest distributed more than 50 million meals through its network of food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, and other community organizations. And whereas food banks across the country will host numerous events throughout the month of September that bring awareness and attention to the problem of food insecurity. Now, therefore, I, Buddy Dyer, Mayor of the City of Orlando, hereby do proclaim September 2016 as Hunger Action Month in the City of Orlando. All right, in the month beginning today, September 15th through October 15th, is Hispanic Heritage Month, and we'll be having a kickoff this evening right after the budget hearing down in the Rotunda. But I would like Commissioner Ortiz to introduce Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you, Mayor. We're excited to recognize the many contributions of the Hispanic community to our city. I want to recognize members of the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association who have specifically supported this recognition. The Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association is composed of restaurant owners and hotel owners throughout the state of Florida, including a large Orlando presence. And we have representation here today, starting with Ms. Rachel Moali, Ms. Rosie Riccardi, if you can please stand up. We have representatives from Red Lobster, Marriott, and Ale House. So let's please give them a round of applause. And with that being said, Mayor, if you please read the proclamation.
City of Orlando proclamation. Whereas September 15th through October 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month nationally to honor the role that the Hispanic community has played and continues to play in the economic, cultural, and social development of our nation. And whereas when celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, we learn of other cultures that have helped shape our country. And whereas the Hispanic community makes up a significant portion of the labor force, working as elected officials, CEOs, small business owners, entrepreneurs, homemakers, and more. And whereas the Hispanic community in the City of Orlando includes unique leaders and exceptional role models. And whereas Hispanic business owners, such as those in the hospitality industry, provide career opportunities for residents from every race, class, and ethnic background. And whereas Hispanic business owners, despite the many risks and personal sacrifices they encounter, continue to be inspirations to their families, employees, and the community. And whereas when the Hispanic community succeeds, our nation, our state, our region, our city succeeds, and its potential should be limited only by the breadth of their dreams. Now, therefore, we, Buddy Dyer, Mayor of the City of Orlando, Jim Gray, District 1, Tony Ortiz, District 2, Robert Stewart, District 3, Patty Sheehan, District 4, Regina Hill, District 5, and Samuel Ings, District 6, hereby do proclaim September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month in the City of Orlando. Okay, just stand up.
Stand up here.
No.
We're going to lean together. We are the boys from home.
No, you're not allowed to sing. I'm already letting you. Singing.
You so funny. You so funny.
Okay, how about a quick mayor's update? The Best of DTO Photo Contest Gallery grand opening is this evening. Our DDB, in partnership with the Downtown Arts District, held the third annual Best of DTO Photo Contest, and the viewing will be at the gallery at Avalon, beginning at 7 o'clock, or beginning at 6. And the DDB will announce the winners tonight at 7, but the exhibit will be open through October the 15th. I have just a couple items on the agenda that I want to highlight. The first is Stand Up Orlando, which is our anti-bullying campaign. It's part of ensuring that our community continues to be a place of belonging and acceptance and respect. There's an item to further our program to provide funding to the Holocaust Memorial Resource and Education Center to help them continue their Upstanders program for the 6th and 7th grade students in 9 public schools here in the city of Orlando. And also, there's an item that will allow the city of Orlando to join community partners, including Heart of Florida United Way, UCF, Valencia, Orange County Public Schools, and the Orange County government to apply for a Promise Neighborhoods grant from the USDOE, which will further move the needle as we have in the Paramore Kids Zone. So with that, we will move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a number of items that are acted upon through a single vote of council. We give each of our council members an opportunity to comment on the consent agenda, as well as generally update you on significant items or happenings in their districts. We rotate the order we do that. Commissioner Hill is first up today.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this past Saturday, I, along with the Northwest Center First Presbyterian, Carter Tabernacle Church there in District 5, Historic Black Church, and Delta Sigma Theta Sorority of Orlando, went and planted, I have my 3rd community garden, something that is very important to me. I remember when I first was elected, going to a community center and talking about a healthier District 5. District 5, many know, is a food desert. And I asked the kid, do you know where carrots come from? And he said, a can. And once he said that, I knew that there was work to be done. So I appreciate those community partners. We planted 17 lots there in the Mercy Drive corner. From there, I went over to Valencia Community College. Again, a great community partner, the sorority Delta Sigma Theta Sorority of Orlando chapter, is addressing healthy children when it comes to mental health. So they had a mental health summit over there, and they addressed bullying, cyberbullying, recognizing signs of depression and suicide, and how to have healthy relationships, risky relationships that might lead to something we don't talk about much, but exists. The chief know this. He's very instrumental in the city when it comes to children and sex trafficking. Many of our children are being recruited right in the high schools when it comes to this. So they were telling kids how to be mindful and what to look out, and parents also. In anger management and self-esteem. So they were doing had some great workshops. A lot of work got done over there, and so it was pretty slow in District 5, but a lot of great things happened. I was out with the Washington law firm where they were raising funds for little girls in Haiti to get an education, which we know is the greatest equalizer. And that's all that I have. I do have a summit this Friday that's coming, that's going to be in the Rotunda. It's addressing Women and Wealth Economic Empowerment Summit, and it will be held Friday evening here, September the 6th. And we'll be talking about money management and how to live a lifestyle on your own terms. So everyone's welcome. It will be free. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move to District 6. Commissioner Ings.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to first express condolences to our permitting director, Tim Johnson, and his family on the passing of his father. The services are going to be held Saturday in Gainesville at 1:30. The viewing will be at 12:30. And then also, Bob Frankie Jr. Passed away. Bob is a former member of the City of Orlando who worked in planning, and Bob worked with the Orlando Neighborhood Improvement Corporation. Bob passed away August the 25th, and on that very same day, myself and Owen Henry were at a luncheon with Banco do Brasil, and Bob was there. And we talked about incidents in Boca Club Apartments. That's one of the apartment complexes that they own. They own 11 different other communities in the Orlando, Central Florida area. And Bob also on 2:58 p.m. that same day on August the 25th sent me an email talking about the things that we had discussed concerning really helping to improve the lives of people at Boca Club Apartments and to keep them safe. Well, Bob passed away that same evening. He was paddleboarding Lake Conway and fell under and never came up. But I say that because it was the very day that we were together in a last email that I had received from him at 2:58 p.m. So Bob's family is doing well, as the rest of the Onik family. So we do express our condolences to them as well. And then also on Friday, September 9th, we had a Seniors Grandparents Appreciation Day at the L. Claudia Allen Center. Casman Flowers of Vitas was there. She was the coordinator and sponsor of this event. And what was really interesting about this particular Grandparents Appreciation Day, they had some live entertainment with a Rick James impersonator. So they were up dancing. It did kind of get them moving a little bit, you know. But this was a great event. Many vendors were there on hand, massages that they received, and a good, healthy lunch. And then also Saturday, the District 6 Wells Fargo Day of Service was held at Clear Lake Park there near the communities of Rio Grande Park and the Isle of Catalina. And Derek Jones, president of Wells Fargo Orlando, was there, and they submitted a check to us for, I think it was about $7,000. But over 60 trees were planted in Clear Lake Park, and also storm drain signs were passed out throughout the neighboring neighborhoods and community. So thank you, Jan Rayhill, Parks, and Jody Baez of Keep Orlando Beautiful for helping to coordinate and move this event along. And also, I attended the funeral services of a local pastor in District 6, Reverend Leroy Dennis, the pastor, former pastor of New St. Mark Free Methodist Church on Grand Street at Westmoreland Drive, passed away. His funeral services were held. He was a great community leader as well, a very good supporter in the district too. And then also I attended the Gift of Life Gala, Christmas in the City event that was held at the Wyndham Orlando Resort. I also read the proclamation from you, Mayor, as well as your video presentation was great, and it was very well received by the people there. So your presence was really felt there, and your support was really felt there as well. The Gift of Life offers hope, encouragement, support to parents of premature babies in neonatal intensive care units. The founder and president, Rosie Moore, of the Gift of Life Charities, and her husband, Marcus Moore, who's the secretary of the organization, were on hand. And this is a very well-attended program. And a black tie event, lots of support for the young people. The young people are involved in musical dance and song. And so this was a really great event. That was the first time that I attended, and I told them it would not be the last. It had that type of impression that it left with me. And then also I did attend the Hispanic Business Initiative Fund Success Stories Luncheon held on yesterday at the Rosen Center. The place was packed, very colorful, and very supportive. So again, thank you so much for what you do in our community. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move to District 1, Commissioner Graff.
Thank you, Mayor. Given the size of the agenda, I think I'll yield and refer folks to our website, District 1, things that I've done in the past and in the future are there. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. And District 2, Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to yield. Let me start with expressing our deep condolences to Mr. Tim Johnson and his family and the losses of his father. On September 1st, we launched the Central Florida Public Service College and Career Readiness Program. That's a big title, Mayor. And thank you, Mayor. You were there supporting us as always. What this program is, we're grabbing our kids at middle school and we're starting to give them directions. Instead of those who are interested in working in public service and grab them during those years. Once they pass to high school, we try to enroll them into a career pathways, older enrollment, so they can start capturing credit hours in college, specifically Valencia College. And then once they move to Valencia College, we unify the academies for the respective professions, either firefighting, corrections, police, and we put them together. So when they graduate, on top of this, we have all the fire departments and police departments from the two county areas, Osceola and Orange County. By the way, thank you, Chief Nina, you're here with us today, and the deputy chiefs. They sign a memorandum of understanding, which basically stipulates that besides our veterans, these kids or these new candidates will be the first ones to be looked upon in order to be hired. So we're creating economic efficiency, administrative efficiency, and we're creating our own pool of grown professionals who that know our area. So is the first time in the nation that this has been done, and I'm excited to announce that this was a collaboration, a partnership between Valencia College, Osceola County Public Schools, Orange County Public Schools, and our city. And we're looking forward to the success. So let me thank those who were involved, and let me name Dr. Scott Fritz from the School District of Osceola, Dr. Barbara Jenkins, Dr. Jeffrey Golds from Valencia College, Dr. Sandy Sugar, of course our Honorable Mayor Buddy Dyer was the first one on the list. And we have Dr. Michael Ambruster, Ms. Belinda Pinkston, Dr. Nasser Hedayat, Dr. James McDonald, Ms. Nicole Palmer, Mr. Joe Baptiste, Ms. Jessica King, Mr. Stephen Chansey, Chief Roderick Williams, Deputy Chief Orlando Rolón, Assistant Chief Aníbal Sáez, and Battalion Chief Joseph Washington. Once again, the City of Orlando excelling, raising the bar. On this past Tuesday, the 13th, in collaboration with the Orlando UCF Incubator, HIP Science, and the Englewood Community Center staff, and our office, we kicked off the District 2 Bridging the Gap program. Bridging the Gap is a movement that brings people of various ages and cultures together to unify and improve the conditions of District 2. The movement takes the technological skills of the youth and the organizational strength of the experienced generations to form a dynamic collaboration of knowledge that aims to strengthen our District 2 community in various positive aspects. We kicked off the movement with an exposure to our kids with a STEM program at the Englewood Center. This time around, they were exposed to a little bit of engineering, and it's neat to see how these kids got really wrapped up around the program and how we immediately captured their imaginations. We were teaching them how to do little robots, and it was pretty neat to see, especially kids that don't have financially the opportunity to be exposed to some of these programs. And this goes along with other programs that are going on around the city too, because I know the mayor has a program citywide, and the After School All Stars program. But this time I want to thank Ms. Alex Temes, manager of the Englewood Community Center, Mr. Michael Wise, the manager of the Orlando UCF Incubator, Mr. Marquette Trichon, president and founder of HIP Science, and Mr. Andre Clark, embedded system engineer, and Ms. Stephanie Cash from my office. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move on to District 3. Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me also express my condolences to Tim on the passing of his father. A couple things I'd like to just touch on briefly. I had a great showing from our community on this past Sunday on 9/11, planting 25,000 trees on what we have kind of called now Orlando's front lawn. It was really, really moving, and got out there at 6 o'clock in the morning and spent some time with some great public servants to accomplish that task. And along with that, we're planting a seedling over at Lou Gardens. There was a tree that survived 9/11, and they have continued to have plantings from that tree that they've been sharing throughout the world. We got one of those plantings, and I'm so thrilled for Mayor for you recognizing that, helping us in that as a result of the tragedy at Pulse, to remind people that peace is what we all achieve. Couple of quick updates. Let me share those with you. Many of you have learned about the duplex meeting. We're having that meeting on 9/20 on September 21. I'm encouraging all of our District 3 residents and those that are involved in the downtown corridor to please attend at the encouragement of several members of this council. We've tried to move that meeting to the evening so people can attend and give us their input. We want input, and so we're asking for that. National Public Lands Day is September 24th over at Bill Frederick Park. Please get a chance to attend that. And of course, National Night Out is just around the corner, October 4th. District 3 has already got 19 parties, and I hope you guys will help out and do just as well as District 3, Tony. Just want you to know that. My little gift to you. On the agenda today, there's a couple of things. One is in Public Works, item I-3. I get regular comments from people asking me about how can we improve our traffic signals. We're going to get a $400,000 grant to upgrade 129 signals in our city. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be, I think it's going to, where we're going to go in the long term to have better connection between that. And then, as I mentioned earlier at the agenda review meeting, I'll be abstaining on the CUP item, let me write that down someplace, CUP item 2016-00015, item C1 today. It affects my church. I'm a member of that church. I'm a voting member, although I don't be in a leadership role at the time. But according to state statute, I have the ability to abstain if there's an appearance of impropriety. So I've chosen to accomplish that for us today. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner, and we'll move to District 4, Commissioner Sheehan.
Thank you, Mayor. On the agenda today, and my schedule is also available on my website as well. On the agenda today, item A2, Bill Stevens' contract. He's been with me for 5 years. He does a great job, so I hope to keep him, and he does an excellent job for the constituents of District 4. On item V5 today, the parking access and revenue control. This is for credit card and computerized space availability in our city garages. It's a great program, so glad to see this moving forward. And finally, item D1, the Lake Eola Sunday Market fee waiver. That's been a great event in Lake Eola Park, and we love to have it and love to see this wonderful event continue at Lake Eola Park for the farmers market. That's all I had, Mayor, and with that, I will move the agenda.
Second.
Motion to move the consent agenda by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed. Motion carries. Okay, let's, without objection, recess the City Council meeting and convene the CRA meeting. First item of business is accepting the meeting minutes of the advisory board from July 20th. Is there a motion to accept? Second. Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, second is accepting the DDB CRA advisory board budget workshop meetings from August the 17th. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Next is approving the meeting minutes of the CRA from August the 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Stewart. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, Thomas, the others are a little bit substantive. You want to take number 4?
All right, thanks, Mayor. Item number 4 is approving the Seniors First Incorporated Agreement for fiscal year 2016-2017. Of course, this is our annual agreement between Seniors First and the CRA, which provides senior transportation to seniors at some 11 downtown senior complexes. The agreement expires on September 30th of this year, and the allocation of funding for the agreement for the fiscal year 16-17 remains the same as in the current year, which is $46,242. The CRA Advisory Board has recommended approval, and if there are no questions, Mayor and Council staff is requesting approval of the agreement with Seniors First Incorporated for a period of October 1, 2016 to September 30th, 2017, for up to a total amount of $46,242, subject to review and approval by the City Attorney's Office and authorization of the execution of the agreement by the Chairman and the Executive Director.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. Questions for Thomas? Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number 5, Thomas.
Thank you. Item number 5 is approving the Downtown Orlando Incorporated Funding Agreement. This funding agreement contemplates funding in the amount of $25,000 for Downtown Orlando, Inc., better known as the Downtown Orlando Partnership, or DOP. Again, the funding agreement amount of $25,000 for fiscal year 16-17 remains the same as in the current year. This agreement has several benchmarks for DOP to meet, including but not limited to continuing to host the very popular Third Thursday events, 10 of them per year, which tonight is one of those, by the way. Events, having at least one major event per each strategic priority of the arts, sports and entertainment, technology, lodging and dining, real estate and development, and quality of life, as well as continuing to work the CRA to continue the work of Project DTO. Again, the advisory board has met and recommended approval, and if there are no questions, staff is requesting approval of the Downtown Orlando Incorporated funding agreement between the CRA and the Downtown Orlando, Inc., subject to review and approval of the City Attorney's Office, and authorizing the Chair of the CRA and the Executive Director to execute such funding agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stewart, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Questions for Thomas? Discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number 6.
Thank you. Item number 6 is adoption of the fiscal year 2016-2017 Community Redevelopment Agency budget and resolution. Staff, as always, has submitted a budget for the CRA's fiscal year 2016-2017. This budget includes estimated expenditures necessary to implement the functions of the CRA, as well as estimated revenues for the year. The budget has been presented in detail at a properly noticed public meeting, and the CRA Advisory Board has subsequently recommended approval of the budget via adoption of the budget resolution, and staff is requesting CRA adoption of the proposed fiscal year 2016-2017 CRA budget and resolution, and authorization of the Chair and the Executive Director to execute the budget resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Stewart. Questions of Thomas? Discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 7.
Thanks again. Item number 7 is approving the fiscal year 16-17 Downtown Development Board / Community Redevelopment Agency cost share agreement. Of course, the cost share agreement between DDB and CRA outlines terms under which the DDB and CRA share administrative costs for the fiscal year. And again, the CRA Advisory Board has recommended approval. And if there are no questions, staff is requesting CRA approval of the fiscal year 2016-17 DDB CRA cost share agreement and authorization of the Chairman and the Executive Director to execute the agreement, subject to review and approval by the City Attorney's Office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stewart, second by Commissioner Hill. Questions of Thomas? Discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. And the last one, Thomas.
All right, and finally, thank you, and finally, approving fiscal year 2016-2017 City Services Agreement between the City of Orlando and the Community Redevelopment Agency. The City Services Agreement outlines the terms under which the city will provide administrative and professional support to the CRA in its implementation of the Community Redevelopment Area Plan. Again, the CRA Advisory Board has recommended approval, and if there are no questions, staff is requesting CRA approval of the FY 2016-2017 City Services Agreement and authorization for the Chairman and the Executive Director to execute the agreement, subject to review and approval by the City Attorney's Office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Stewart. Are there questions of Thomas? Discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and so the motion carries. Thank you, Thomas. Any further business to come before the CRA today?
There's none, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we will, without objection, adjourn CRA meeting. We will reconvene the City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, are you all warmed up?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go. Hearings, ordinances, second reading, number 1.
Ordinance 2016-66, an ordinance of the City of Orlando granting Hubbard Construction Company doing business as Mid-Florida Materials a non-exclusive franchise to provide roll-off container collection and disposal of solid waste within the City of Orlando, outlining franchisees' duties and providing the terms and conditions under which such franchise shall operate, providing severability and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Stewart. Is there anyone that would like to testify on the roll-off container ordinance? Discussion among commissioners, hearing none. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 2, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2016-63, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, annexing to the corporate limits of the city certain land generally located north of East Michigan Street, east of South Brown Street, and south of East Crystal Lake Avenue, addressed as 1401 East Michigan Street and comprised of .69 acres of land, more or less, amending the city's adopted growth management plan to designate the property as residential low intensity in part and mixed-use corridor medium intensity village in part on the city's official future land use maps, designating the property as R2A Family District along with the traditional city overlay in part and the MU1 Medium Intensity Mixed Use Corridor District along with the traditional city overlay district in part on the city's official zoning map, providing for amendment of the city's official future land use and zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's errors, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Stewart. Is there anyone from the public that would like to testify on this matter? Discussion among commissioners. Hearing none. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 3, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2016-62, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the city's adopted growth management plan to redesignate certain land generally located north of West Robinson Street, south of Pittman Street, and west of North Huey Avenue, and comprised of .9 acres of land, more or less, from office, medium intensity in part, and an industrial in part to urban activity center on the city's official future land use maps, rezoning the same land from O2/T/PH to AC2/T/PH on the city's official zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's errors, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Is there anyone from public that would like to testify on this matter? Discussion among commissioners. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 4, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2016-67, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, relating to alcoholic beverages and nightclubs, amending classifications and definitions, hours of service, sale, and consumption of alcoholic beverages, amending Chapter 33, Sections 33.02, 33.03 of the Code of the City of Orlando, Florida, terminating the temporary moratorium on the opening of new after-hours nightclubs and on the expansion or the relocation of any existing after-hours nights clubs, addressing the moratorium task force, providing for severability, codification, correction of scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Who was the maker of the motion? Commissioner Ings?
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion, you guys need to speak up just a hair. Motion by Commissioner Ings, second by Mr. Sheehan. Discussion, anybody want to testify? All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, number 5, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2016-65, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, relating to impact fees, amending Chapter 56 Orlando City Code to establish a parks impact fee, providing purpose and intent definitions, and establishing parks impact fees, funds, and parks benefit areas, imposing an impact fee on each new single-family and each new multifamily dwelling unit in the city, further providing for alternative impact fee calculations, credits against impact fees, and exemptions, also providing for the use of funds collected, the return of certain funds, and for appeals of certain determinations, providing organizational amendments to Chapter 56, providing legislative findings, and for severability, codification, correction of scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gray, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Is there anyone from the public who would like to testify on this matter? Discussion among commissioners. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, we have the park impact fee. How about that? All right, ordinances first read, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2016-70, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the city's adopted growth management plan to change the future land use map designation for a portion of an approximately 1.75 acre development site generally located north of West Mayoral Street, east of South Lucerne Terrace, south of West Harding Street, and west of South Orange Avenue from residential medium intensity to mixed-use corridor medium intensity, further amending the growth management plan to remove a portion of the development site from the boundaries of the sub-area policy S-12-1, provide for amendment of the city's official future land use and sub-area policy maps, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's errors, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Stewart. Is there anyone from the public that would like to testify on this matter? Discussion among commissioners. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, number 2, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2016-64, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida relating to environmental sustainability, creating Chapter 15 of the Orlando City Code entitled Sustainability, establishing a building energy benchmarking program, providing definitions, legislative findings, and providing benchmarking and notification requirements for certain commercial buildings, providing a schedule for compliance, providing for penalties for violations, providing for severability, codification, correction of scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Stewart. All right, anybody that's nodding off, this is the one that you're probably here for. We have 40 speaker cards. Should I just wait to the end of the meeting to do this one? No, I'm not. We'll take it in order. So we've done a lot of things to further our vision of having one of the most resilient and greenest cities in our nation, and I think we can actually claim the title for the Southeast United States. And we have really made some great efforts in a variety of areas, and one of the areas that we're focused on is our goal to reduce our community's energy usage by 25%. And the city has taken a leadership role in that regard. We have done energy audits and made improvements in 55 of our buildings that are resulting in about $2.5 million worth of energy savings on an annual basis, which the really cool thing about that is we're funding half of the construction cost of our police station with savings that were created by doing energy improvements to buildings. So it's smart, it's green, and it's fiscally prudent. Our Green Team Sustainability Department has been working very hard on a strategy that has been modeled in other cities. New York, Boston, Seattle. We're part of a group of 10 cities that have committed to adopting a building energy and water efficiency strategy. Half of those cities have already done so, and I know there's a lot of people here to support this. There are people here to oppose it, but I will say ours is probably, Chris, the weakest of the 6 that have been, or 5 that have been adopted so far, but I'm proud that we've moved this along and that we have had substantial input from stakeholders and have modified the ordinance based on the desires of some folks that had some concerns with it. So it's a good step forward today, and I appreciate everybody that has an interest in this subject matter, and I appreciate the opinions on both sides of this. So what I'd like to do is to have our Deputy CAO, Kevin Edmonds, give a brief presentation, followed by Chris to go through the specifics of what we're here to do today. Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Won't take too long because I know there are a lot of folks who want to talk about this today. It's a very, shall we say, a popular item. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to start off by giving you a little background, a little update on our GreenWorks program. Make sure I have my slides straight. The objective of the GreenWorks program is to preserve our natural resources, energy, water, and the ecology, promote environmentally friendly lifestyles and business practices, reduce pollution and public health impacts, and develop new economies to spur investments and job creation. Short said, we want to become one of the most sustainable cities in America. These are the tenets on which we base our GreenWorks program: energy and green buildings, food systems, green ecology, livability, solid waste, transportation, and water. As far as a brief history, it was launched in 2007 by Mayor Dyer. He created a 15-member GreenWorks task force that was chaired by former Mayor Crotty. We've partnered with every single department, including economic development, family parks and recreation, human resources, for such things as 6+ lead fire stations, green purchasing and tax credits, revised landscape code, single cart recycling, residential composters, food waste, lead Amway Center and Citrus Bowl, greening of events, and also partnerships at Lou Gardens. Just a sampling of our success, we're tracking $1.5 million in annual utility maintenance savings, 56 buildings receiving $17.5 million in energy efficient investments. That's $2.4 million in savings per year. Hybrid, all-electric, and CNG-fueled vehicles. There's a good chance that if you live in the city of Orlando, you will notice we have CNG garbage trucks that are much more efficient and better for the environment. We've completed 1,200 residential energy retrofits, 150 plus EV charging stations. We have 13 LEED certified municipal buildings in the city of Orlando, 11 community gardens, over 1 million pounds of food waste diverted in 1 year, and that's our new program. 3,000 residential composters delivered, and more than 2,000 trees via Energy Savings Trees program. And just to give you an idea of how we're viewed in the broader community and in the broader portion of the country, the city of Orlando has been leading as far as national efforts by the Department of Energy Better Buildings Challenge, working on energy data accelerated with OUC, the City Energy Project. We've received recognition from the EPA for the EPA National Building Competition, where we received 5th place out of 5,000 plus buildings. Connect Cities by Lucid, the International Compact of Mayors, and also recognition from Energy Secure Cities Coalition. With that being said, Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and turn this over to Chris Castro. Chris is our Director of Sustainability, and he's going to delve a little bit more into the benchmarking program, the processes, what it means to the community, but also what it means in regards to public health and how it helps us to become one of the greenest cities in the southeastern portion of the United States. Chris?
Thank you, Kevin. Mayor, Commissioners, guests. Thank you all for joining us today. As you all know, 2.5 years ago, I was brought on board to the city to help us really start focusing in on reaching the goals and the targets that are identified within our community action plan, specifically in the energy and green buildings area. To give a quick overview of what's in the plan and what goals we're trying to achieve, you'll notice I've bolded out the 2018 targets that we're closely leading up to. And these targets in energy really focused on, one, reducing air pollution and impacts on public health as it relates to that air quality by 25% compared to 2007 levels. We're trying to work with OUC to accelerate more renewable energy within our fuel mix to 8%, which we're doing a great job with community solar and the rollout of other programs. Reducing citywide energy use intensity. This is really targeting the efficiency of our community, and what we're going to be talking about today with BWES really focuses in on that particular goal. Trying to encourage new development to be 100% green buildings, whether it's LEED, Green Globe, Energy Star, whatever it might be. We want to make sure that as we're developing this city in the coming years and decades, that we're preparing ourselves for new businesses to be attracted here because of our infrastructure and primarily green buildings. And this has a very distinct tie to water consumption as well. Our targets for 2018 are to reduce gross potable water consumption per capita by 3%. And a lot of people don't realize that there's a critical energy and water nexus, that we use a substantial amount. I mean, most of our water is being used to produce power that we're demanding right now, to heat and cool these buildings, to provide this projector so that we can see our presentation. These are important connections that we're trying to achieve, and through this policy I'll be introducing, we'll be targeting a number of those areas. So in order for us to identify how to improve, we need to understand where we are as a city. And over the course of the last 6 years, we've been tracking our air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions through what's called the Compact of Mayors. This is something that over 1,000 mayors around the world have committed to tracking and figuring out ways, strategies, and tactics for us to work with the business community in reducing this pollution. And what the interesting part that we note is that in Orlando, and this is not unique to us, but in most urban cities, buildings and the consumption of energy account for the majority of our energy use and the vast majority of the air pollution. In Orlando, 57% of total energy use that runs our economy here is the built environment demanding that, and 72% of the air pollution. So we started to look at where Orlando ranks in the country as it relates to green buildings. And in fact, this is a newer, updated version of 2016. But in 2014, when we were originally, Clean Edge is the report that's done every year looking at the top 50 MSAs in the country. And what we see is we were originally 41st back in 2014. Now we've dropped to 43rd in the country, and Tampa has just gotten ahead of us. Jacksonville and the city of Miami, our largest urban settings in the state, are now above us in terms of green buildings throughout our city. And that's not just LEED, but that's Energy Star, it's Green Globe, it's other forms of green building certifications. So in 2014, the city of Orlando was selected for a groundbreaking national initiative called the City Energy Project, where 10 American cities of all sizes started to do in-depth research on the best practices, both on a policy and a programmatic level, for us to begin moving forward with energy efficiency and taking advantage of the resource that's in front of us to save money, to drive economies, to improve public health, and to make our city more resilient and more efficient for future generations to come. As Mayor Dyer mentioned in the recent blog that was published, knowledge is power. And many of these cities around the country are beginning to look at market-driven mechanisms that help our businesses and our building communities to improve. And so information transparency happens to be one of these foundational policies that cities are beginning to implement around the country. When you go to a car lot to buy a new vehicle, we know that there's an MPG label on that vehicle, and we're able to understand how much we're going to spend on average using this vehicle versus another. When we go to the grocery store and we can see the types of food and drink products we want to purchase, you can see how healthy one item is over another. And now when you're buying new appliances, even there's an energy gauge that shows you the anticipated amount that you're going to save based on one efficiency over the other. So the question becomes, how can we encourage the built environment to also see the amazing opportunity that we face with energy efficiency in buildings and the tie that it has to public health? So here's a map that shows across the country the cities, counties, and states that have adopted the BWEST policy, building, benchmarking, and transparency policies. You can see that Atlanta is the first city in the Southeast to pass this as of 2015. Cities like Portland, Boulder, Austin, many of these cities that we look up to and we compare ourselves with have already shown this to be realistic and feasible in markets that are much larger than Orlando. And so we started to look at this policy and really begin to work on how we can bring this forward. It's important to note that, and we might hear this from the audience today about a voluntary pilot to move this thing forward. Well, in 2010 and 2011, Orange County was actually looking to implement this policy on a county-wide basis. They wanted to get the cities as well as unincorporated areas to move forward with benchmarking and transparency as a key strategy. And before they moved forward with that policy, it was decided from the community to host a voluntary pilot. And it was a 3-year challenge from 2011 to 2013 with the goal of saving 10% of the energy in that period. We partnered with the city of Orlando, of course, was a major partner, University of Central Florida, BOMA, NAIOP, IFMA, many of the real estate associations, ASHRAE and USGBC, of course. And the cool thing about this challenge is we also trained students at UCF. I was at the time working for the UCF Sustainability Department and helped to convene 40 students who were trained in how to benchmark buildings and then provided free technical support to those who are participating in the challenge to assist them through this process. We had roughly 1,800 buildings sign up, about 51 businesses. But what we saw was at the end of this challenge, only 25 buildings actually showed improvement over that time period and hit the goal of 10%. And the vast majority of the 25 were public sector buildings that took Recovery Act dollars and invested in their facilities. So what we've seen is that voluntary programs, and I'll have another case study in a bit on Portland, they don't move the needle on reaching our goals. And that's why we're considering a policy that's before us. It's important to note that also in 2015, Orange County has implemented or incorporated BWEST policy as a key strategy in their sustainability plan that was adopted last year. So of course, we're not just going to build policy and move it forward without engaging our community and our partners. I personally have done over 300 in-person meetings with owners and operators, with managers, brokers, nonprofits, labor interest unions, you name it. And the point was to propose what we were seeing across the country and learn from them about what we can do to shape and craft a customized policy for Orlando. In addition to the in-person meetings, we've held 2 summits on this topic, Climate and Energy Summit and the Green Economy Summit, in partnership with our Chamber of Commerce and OUC. We've also held specific workshops with BOMA, with the Apartment Association, and many other organizations in order to engage their membership around this topic and hear from their constituents about what to do. And lastly, over the last 6 months, I've held a stakeholder roundtable and convened a tight-knit group of owners and operators and people in the real estate community to help us specifically craft policy options in the language that is in front of you today. In fact, we just held an emergency roundtable 2 days ago to tweak just last minute on how we can improve this even more. The goals of this policy that we'll run through really quickly right now are, 1, to again enable information and provide knowledge for customers who are looking to rent apartments or enter into office buildings in our downtown. It's about market competition and consumer choice. Secondly, of course, energy, water, and cost savings. This is going to help save money for not only the owners of these buildings, but their tenants. We've seen that by implementing these policies, we've seen economic growth and investments into our downtowns and our regions, as well as job creation, which is something I think everybody wants here in Orlando. By getting this information, we also become smarter governments and smarter utilities. We can better target and market our programs and our resources to assist buildings that may need some support and help them become more efficient as well. And lastly, and most importantly in my opinion, it's about enhancing quality of life for the residents of Orlando. It's about reducing air pollution and enhancing air quality so that we can have long-term sustainability for our residents, our visitors, those who come, live, work, and play in our city. So we're going to dive into these policy details and then happy to take questions. This policy has 3 key components. The first component is energy and water benchmarking. This is intended to score your building, essentially like a miles per gallon, from 1 to 100. I'll get into the tool that will be used. This will be required for municipal buildings that are above 10,000 square feet, meaning city-owned buildings above 10,000, and non-city buildings that are above 50,000 square feet. The second part of this policy is the act of reporting and making that information transparent to the marketplace so that people can make better, more informed real estate decisions when it comes down to renting an apartment or buying a new building. The third component is an energy audit component that would only happen once every 5 years if a building scores under the national average. Out of that 1 to 100, 100 being the best, 1 being the worst, 50 is the national median. And if you're under 50, this policy would require you to move forward and get an energy audit that's free of charge and provided by OUC and our utility already for customers. Energy benchmarking. This is the act of tracking an existing building's energy use and comparing it to similar buildings as well as its own self over time. So again, it's getting that MPG score. How do I compare to another facility? It's using a free web-based tool called Energy Star Portfolio Manager. We all know about the Energy Star label that's on our refrigerators, that's on our computers. Now buildings, whole buildings can become Energy Star, and we have many of them in downtown. Those facilities are using that free tool to do it. And a national study by Pacific Northwest National Lab showed that to do this effort for one building takes roughly 4 hours to 8 hours one time per year if the data is available for you. So that's something that's important, is getting the data. Once you have the information, it's plug and chug. It's about putting this information into a tool and getting your score. This is an interface of what the tool looks like, and again, this tool essentially takes building characteristic information, the year it was built, the size of the building, the type of building, whether it's multifamily, retail, etc. And what happens is Energy Star takes that information and compares it to a national data set called CBEX, Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey. And CBEX can then use weather data at a local level and accurately score your building from 1 to 100. I mentioned that data is an important part of this whole thing, and I've been working closely with OUC to enable a tool that is called Whole Building Utility Data Platform. And this would allow owners and managers who we've heard from wanting this tool to get the data by aggregating all of the meters that are associated with the building and giving a building owner one consumption, one value for the full building. Now, this can be difficult because every tenant in an office building may have their own separate meter and their own account with OUC. So if a building owner is trying to get all this data and plug it into the tool, we need to make it simple for building owners to get that data and aggregate it and make it simple to put in to the tool. So we're working with OUC. Their goal is to launch this in September of 2017, 1 year prior to this sun rising as a requirement. The size threshold for the covered buildings are as follows. I mentioned city-owned buildings above 10,000 square feet, which we're prepared to do today. We're already benchmarking. As Mayor said, we're investing in our buildings. We're trying to show the leadership by example. For non-city buildings, this would be 50,000 square feet and above. Every city that's implemented this policy has really tried to start at that level so that building owners who own a building here and in Chicago don't have to figure out whether or not their building needs to comply with the policy. We standardize this at a national level. And that's a big reason why we moved originally from 40,000 square feet to 50,000 square feet. What does that mean in terms of total number of buildings? That's about 900 buildings in all of the city of Orlando, public and private, that would need to benchmark and report their scores every single year. And again, they're roughly half of the total square footage and energy use and the majority of our greenhouse gas emissions. Here's what that looks like graphically. You have a small amount of buildings, 4.2% of total buildings citywide, and you have roughly that equating to 48, almost 50% of the total square footage. What we want to do is target the smallest amount of facilities that have the biggest impact, what they call the Pareto principle, right? And that's why 50,000 square feet has been shown to be the level that we want to move forward with. To put things in perspective, New York, I know much larger in size, has 16,000 buildings that comply with this policy every year. We would have less than 1,000 for us to do this. In order to ensure quality assurance and quality control for the information being put into the tool, the city of Chicago rolled out a clause that said qualified benchmarkers are the only ones that can use the tool and report to the city. And we want to ensure that there are several certifications that we've listed here that we've worked with our partners to ensure that the BOMA, the IFMA, the NAOP, the ASHRAE certifications are all provided for these buildings. Now, these large buildings oftentimes have either building managers that have experience of 3 years, which we've added as a qualified benchmarker, or they tend to have one of these types of certifications. These are huge infrastructures, huge buildings, right? I want to note that the first one, Certificate for Proficiency in Benchmarking, is a new certification that the US EPA created to assist cities and building owners in getting certified and being qualified benchmarkers. This is a $250 certification. So it's very low cost to get certified, and you can have a building tech or even even have janitors who get trained through this program, and those individuals can actually be qualified to input this. So there's no requirement to hire a company to come and do this. In fact, in the markets that have implemented this policy, roughly 60 to 70% of the buildings do this in-house. They hire their own staff, or they'll train one of their staffs with the CPB or one of those certifications to move it forward. Second part of the policy, as mentioned, is reporting and transparency. This is done through the Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool. It's a click of a button. At the very top, you see reporting as a tab. After you get your score, you go to the reporting tab, you click reporting, you scroll down, you find Orlando, and eventually that gets submitted electronically. So there's no downloading of a PDF, sending via email. It's all done through the tool, and it's seamless and streamlined. The information, when we receive it, therefore can be put into annual benchmarking reports. These you can see are, here's the City of Philadelphia, City of New York, and City of Chicago reports, and an example of one. And what's in these reports is essentially a general analysis of how buildings are using energy and water. It does not pinpoint a specific facility and say they're a poor performer. It just says, how does office versus hotel versus warehouse use these resources, and how can we better target opportunities, maybe specific challenges for multifamily, so that we can encourage them to be more efficient, right? In addition, case studies and best practices from buildings are shared in these reports, so that we can share what types of improvements we can make to save the most energy. The last component is the energy audits component, and this is really where the rubber meets the road. Energy audits are really lifting under the hood of that MPG and figuring out why that car is so efficient versus another one. When you get your benchmark score, you don't know why your score is a 50 or a 60 or a 20. It doesn't tell you why. An energy audit really starts to look at the lighting, the mechanical, the envelope, the service hot water, and the plug load, 5 major components of a building's energy use, and they figure out where can you improve in the most cost-effective way? What are the returns? How can we make our building more efficient? As mentioned, most cities, all of them but us, require that an ASHRAE Level 2 audit by a certified professional is done for you to comply with this policy. Because we wanted to work with our business community and they felt there was too much financial hardship or impact that this would have, we allowed for the OUC and Duke Energy utility audit that's offered free of charge to comply with this policy. So there's no cost to benchmark, there's no cost to report, and there's no cost to do the audit in terms of financial cost. There's only staff time that may be needed to make this thing happen. In closing, I'll mention a couple last things. There's exemptions for this policy, many of them, and those have been collected from our partners. One is industry, manufacturing, and theme park attractions cannot accurately be scored with Energy Star. So they've had to be eliminated because you can't accurately score a Harry Potter roller coaster. The tool is not intended to score those buildings. They're intended to score common properties. The second is telecommunications infrastructure. This has been exempt in every other city as well, and that's for a security and resilience standpoint, that we want to ensure security for our residents in times of great danger. And as well as if a building cannot get that whole building data, they would be exempt if they have more than 3 meters. So if OUC next year doesn't launch that tool that I was talking about, and for whatever reason they delay it another year or 2, according to our exemptions in this policy, they would not have to comply at all. They would be exempt until the utility offers that tool in the future. Now, we know we've been working with OUC for 2 years. This is something they want to provide as a customer service. They're looking to roll this tool out. But I wanted to point that out. And then there are general financial hardship type exemptions as well. Some of the heartburn has been around the compliance. This is going to go in the municipal code. It would be a breach of code it would be a breach of the city's code, and therefore code enforcement would need to be come into play if this is violated. Violations only occur if a building does not provide the benchmark or do the energy audit in that time frame, right? So it's not that buildings have to improve their score or have to make an investment. That's a very important point. You can be a 5 out of 100 for 2 decades if you want, and that's your purview. But that information would be reported and made transparent. We've ensured that there's an extra layer for code enforcement, that if a building, for whatever reason, gets a violation, instead of immediately penalizing, we're going to allow them to appeal to the code enforcement board. And the code enforcement board at that point would hear out the building owner and say, you know what, maybe you're exempt for 3 more months and try to get it in, or maybe you're exempt for a whole year, or maybe you get a maximum of a $2,000 penalty. They may just slap $200. The point is that we're taking our nepotism away, and we're allowing the board that's elected by the public to decide on that. Implementation timeline is, I'm coming to a close here. Implementation timeline has been extended an entire year. So instead of starting this next year, we decided to push this off till May of 2018, when the private sector would need to benchmark and report. We are not going to make information transparent in May in 2018. What we decided is to stagger the implementation. So now May Now 2019 comes around. May, they're benchmarking and they're reporting in 2019, and later that fall in September, we would make that information transparent to the public. CoStar, as an example, is a real estate database that's used in transactions, and CoStar has partnered with the U.S. Department of Energy to ensure that this data is put on their platform so that people can be more informed in real estate, right? In 2020, if their building falls under the 50, which is the national median, that's when a notification would come out and say, you have 5 years to call OUC or Duke Energy and get a free energy audit of your building. I want to reiterate that there's no requirement to improve, there's no requirement to invest. It's just getting the audit and the information to figure out where are those opportunities to make cost-effective decisions. This is just a summation of what you just saw there, again, for the benchmarking. 2017 notification, 2018 the actual benchmarking reporting, 2019 the transparency. And the audits, again, wouldn't start till 2020. So now we're talking 4 or 5 years out before this actually comes into effect for that. We are proposing, Mayor, that part of our Greenworks Advisory Committee brings on representatives from the real estate community to assist us in properly vetting and determining rules within this policy. We want to ensure that we're not just picking and choosing ourselves on how to interpret this policy, but that we're engaging a task force, the task force that you helped to develop, in partnership with our associations, and ensuring that this policy engages them before we determine or decide on anything. So we'll be developing a Greenworks Advisory Committee and a subcommittee for energy and green buildings that would be respective of building owners and managers primarily. So in summing up the benefits of these things, one, it's a market-based mechanism. We are providing actionable information to market sectors, creating permanent accountability for us to make these improvements and reach these goals, and as a result, helping to create a market-driven improvement, cycle of improvement. Once I understand where my peers are, we want to improve and be better and attract tenants to a more efficient building, and that's, again, that cycle. 2 is this is a proven strategy. EPA did a study on buildings that just benchmark, not even make improvements or investments, just benchmark, and they saw that over a 3-year period, they saved 7% or 2.4% per year, just by paying attention to how we manage and use these finite resources that are so important to the long-term sustainability of our people and our cities. It also enhances real estate values. Those buildings that are getting scored and that are doing benchmarking have shown to have higher sales values, higher occupancy rates, higher productivity rates for those who occupy the buildings, and operational savings for the people who own and manage these buildings. So it does show an enhanced real estate value. And lastly, this helps stimulate the local economy. It's about creating jobs and investments in our infrastructure that makes it more resilient and more efficient. Portland, I mentioned, was going to move forward with this in 2013. They decided to do a pilot. They wanted 200 to 300 buildings to jump on board of this pilot, and a total of 54 buildings, even engaging their local BOMA and NAIOP chapter, 54 buildings signed up and actually participated. That was 25% of their covered building stock that needed to move forward. Since then, they determined that voluntary programs do not meet the goals of their program and the energy stating targets. And the same was shown in the Orange County kilowatt crackdown as well. They have since enacted this policy in fall of 2015, along with Boulder and Atlanta and Kansas City just last year. I'm going to close with this important impact study to say that we're not just blowing smoke, that this has been well vetted academically and done market research on the impacts of this policy. New York was the first city to implement this ordinance, and in a 3-year period, these are the facts that came out of this plan, and I'd be happy to share with you the energy plan that was by the U.S. Department of Energy. 16,000 buildings complied with the policy, and they saw a 5.7% reduction in energy savings. Our goals are to save 5% by 2018 compared to 2010 levels. We have the ability to see the same. We also saw that jobs were created, 6,500 new jobs. Of course, their scale is much larger, and that their greenhouse gas and air pollution emissions reduced by about 9.9%, almost 10%, simply by helping to enable this market transformation in their city. At the end of the day, buildings are the largest impact on public health. It's not agriculture. It's actually not industry. It's not transportation. It's buildings demanding energy from our power sector that has an adverse externality on public health. And so an individual building may not want to do this, but as an aggregate, when we look at the total impact that it has on air quality, buildings are the number one opportunity that we have to drive forward. We have done our own study for what this policy would impose on Orlando. And here today is Matt Cox, who's a PhD, who's been studying energy policy, and he'll speak later today about his impact study, so I won't take his fire. But overall, we're going to see hundreds of millions of dollars of savings. We could see millions of dollars of health impacts in terms of benefits, and even saving water by nearly 1 billion gallons. This is a very important policy, and I appreciate the opportunity to present this to you all today.
All right.
Mayor, I'll be very brief here. I just made a couple of notes that we can really for comments and acknowledgement. This benchmarking process is really another step in making Orlando the greenest city in the southeastern United States. Orlando will not be a pioneer in this effort. This isn't bleeding edge. Other communities have similar ordinances in place. And frankly, most are more onerous than the ones that is being proposed here today. A lot of stakeholder outreach went into this particular process. We want to thank the stakeholder groups, everyone from IFMA on down the line, but especially BOMA and NIOP. They brought a lot of perspective and a lot of context to this discussion beginning back in February. So regardless of the fact whether there are philosophical differences, they were instrumental in really helping to craft this policy and giving us the real world impact on that. So want to acknowledge that. With that being said, Mayor, I'll open it up for questions if you wish. I'll probably have to have Chris field most of those, but.
Would you guys like to ask questions, or would you like to hear from the 40-plus people that would like to speak? Okay, that's what I thought. So I think it's pretty apparent that this was not thrown together, that a lot of thought and effort and work and input has gone into this. And there are a lot of people that are excited about this. So I'm going to read 3 or 4 at a time. So if you can get in the queue, and rules are come to the mic, give your name and address, direct all your remarks to the council and not an individual member. And you have 5 minutes. You are not required to use all 5 minutes. Okay, so the first 3 are Eric Rollins, David Dunn, and Yulissa Arce.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer and Commissioners. My name is Eric Rawlings, and I'm the chair of the Orange Soil and Water Conservation District and a realtor in Orlando for 14 years. In the past, the environment and the economy seemed to be 2 different issues. Now we know that they're one of the same. I'm in strong support of the energy benchmarking program. I've attended several meetings concerning this issue, and I believe that fair negotiations between stakeholders and the city resulted in this ordinance. Originally, the plan called for 40,000 square feet or more buildings to be included, and that was moved up to 50,000 square feet, as Mr. Castro just stated. The timing has been generously extended. Here's my concern. Cities such as Austin, Boulder, Portland already have benchmarking audits or have both in place. Is Orlando going to fall behind? Well, with that last slide that Chris showed, if we're behind Miami and Tampa and Jacksonville, I guess that answers my question. I think everyone in this room wants Orlando to be the most competitive, profitable, and sustainable city possible. Timing is everything, and I think timing couldn't be better than it is now. By voting yes for this program, we will ensure Orlando's competitive edge. We can't predict the future, but what we do know is Orlando is growing fast. We know that we have 20 million residents in Florida. We have 100 million visitors, and that's a lot of resources, and they need to be conserved. What if we were to have an energy crisis or a drought like is crippled out west? It's lasted for years. Saving our resources is prudent, and it is a smart way to implement this plan. so our quality of life is improved today and protected in the future. I know that transparency is an issue and tenant participation is an issue, but we could start now as stakeholders to include disclosures or include in the leases that tenants, upon request, submit utility bills as a first step for the expectations to comply. 8 out of the 10 cities with the highest GDP or gross domestic product have or will soon have benchmarking. 2 of the top 10 malls in the nation are located in Orlando, including Mall Millennia, sales of $1,360 per square foot with 59 million visitors, and that's amazing. Think of the resources that we can save when all large buildings participate in this no-cost program. The only cost that would really be significant would be if this energy plan is not implemented. As a realtor and as a soil water supervisor, I urge you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. David Dunn, Yulissa Ars, Scott Zimmerman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is David Dunn. I am a resident of Brevard County. I do work here for the City of Orlando, to be fully transparent, and was originally a member of that 15-member team you started in 2007. I'm speaking today on behalf of IFMA. You've heard IFMA mentioned before. IFMA is the International Facility Management Association. I've been in leadership with IFMA for the past 10 years, and I'm representing them here today. IFMA was an early stakeholder and got very involved with Chris when this first started. I was in leadership with the local chapter, which is 232 local members. I'm in leadership with the Public Sector Council, which is 931 members, and I represent IFMA, which is tens of thousands of members globally. IFMA is already doing benchmarking very similar to everything represented in the ordinance and has been for years. This has had a very positive effect in both the private and the public sector. We've seen it, we support it, we recognize the benefits, which is why we were an early adopter to be involved. We could not stress our interest in seeing this coming forward any stronger than has been represented already. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Yulissa, Scott Zimmerman, and Michael Hess.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is Judy Sarce. I am the Orlando Director of Organize Now. And on behalf of my organization and our members, I am here to express a strong support for the Orlando Building Energy and Water Efficiency Strategy. We support this policy because we believe it is the first and hopefully the first of hopefully many steps in the city will take to be able to help bring transparency that is essential to reducing carbon emissions and curbing climate change. This ordinance, right, BUS, will not only help with the reduction of energy and water usage, but will also create a pathway to the highly desirable and highly needed sustainable jobs that our community members really need. Organize Now works with low to moderate income communities of color. As you may already know, with the thousands of reports that are out there, the communities that we represent are the most impacted by climate change. Mayor, this was a rumor up until you said it this morning. We want to be the greenest city in the Southeast. I'm proud to call myself an Orlandoan. I've lived here all my life, and I would love to help you achieve that dream. And part of making that dream a reality is by supporting this ordinance. We cannot continue to do business as usual in decision making as city commissioners and as a mayor. We have to really be bold with the decisions that we make and really stand up and say, you know what, we need to pass ordinances that have teeth to them in order for us to really achieve those visions and dreams. I live very closely to Commissioner Gray and Commissioner Ortiz's district. I actually live in unincorporated Orange County in Pete Clark's district, and I have a stake in getting our air clean as well. I suffer from asthma. Many of our community members suffer from asthma, specifically Latino and African American community members. We have the highest respiratory disease rates and asthma rates in the entire country. So on behalf of Organize Now, I'd like to express our support for this and hope that you can be bold today in voting for this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Zimmerman, Michael Hess, and then Mitesh Smart.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer and Commissioners, my name's Scott Zimmerman. I'm president of Banyan AGPM. AGPM is an acronym for a Green Property Manager, very appropriate for today. Our firm is based here in Orlando. We own and manage approximately 10,000 apartments, along with several smaller office buildings here in the city of Orlando. We also have about 4,000 apartments in the greater Orlando area. Our firm also supports the Orlando Building Energy and Water Efficiency Strategy. And in line with that strategy, we've been doing benchmarking at our communities for several years. And we've had an extreme amount of success with that. We also do the initial energy audits. We've used utility companies. We've used OUC. They've done a great job on some of their energy audits for us and been very helpful. We've used private engineers. And we take all the information and we look for any opportunities to reduce energy usage and utility bills for both the owners and all the residents also. And typically we're able to find lots of what we call low-hanging fruit. Those are types of improvements that we can do to the communities that allow for a payback. Sometimes you can get a payback in 30 days. And those are no-brainers. Sometimes it's a year. The paybacks that are 5 years and longer, that are large dollar amounts, we look at on a case-by-case basis. When we're doing renovations or we're doing upgrades, we can do those, refinancing, depending upon each particular transaction. But we set up with a global plan, and we have a big picture, and then we work towards that on each community. But the benchmarking we look at internally every month. And every month we find various opportunities that you wouldn't ordinarily see if you didn't do the benchmarking. I thought I'd give some examples because we're real life operators of some interesting things. In addition to regular water savers or changing lights or getting new ACs, kind of the standard things that a lot of people do, that we do all the time. But these were a couple things that I thought I'd just point out that were out of the box that people might not see if you weren't doing the benchmarking and the initial energy audit reports. We had a property that we looked at, and from a benchmarking standpoint, we knew it was using twice as much water as it should. But it had been running at the same usage and the same cost for 20 years, so no one really paid attention to it. They thought that it was that's the way it was. So we pursued it. And we found out that there was a fountain that had been installed on this community. It was a 150-unit apartment community. The fountain's been running for 20 years, and they either never installed or never hooked up the recirculation of that fountain. So for 20 years, they've been running a fountain. This is a 10, 15-foot high fountain running, and it's been using twice the amount of water that it should be. As soon as they shut that off and put on a recirculating pump, it saved that community. Besides all the water and energy savings, it saved it almost $3,000 a month. So think about that. Now that's something that experts and owners and managers have been looking at this property for 20 years, and so it's just it's something that the benchmarking really allowed you to do. Another example, when we took over a property that's 10 years old, a nice community, and we did the initial energy audit, and the auditor went into the attics. This is about a 10-year-old apartment community. Found out that about half of the units had never had insulation installed in half of the units. So for 10 years, these units have been running with excessive utility costs. So of course we went ahead and redid that. But for 10 years, nobody saw it. So amazing little things. We did on an AC one, we had where the residents were complaining about AC. This is a commercial building. And we checked the AC, had the AC company come out and check it, and it worked fine. We had the guys crawl up in the attic. It turns out there was an animal that had crawled into the attic and made a home inside the air ducts. And so basically the air conditioner had been air conditioning the attic and the outside for who knows how long. So all these little things that are, in addition to the regular things that that you would normally think of as energy saving. These are all kind of, I call extreme type situations that really came up, and they're interesting. So we had one more. We had a 150-unit apartment community that we did a full green energy savings. It was here in Orlando. We were able to reduce the water usage to 1/3 of what it had been running for 10 years. And we did that, again, in conjunction with OUC, so they've been a good partner and good partnership. So overall, we've never had a property that we've not been able to reduce energy consumption and utility costs for the benefit of owners and managers and residents ever. Sometimes it's 5%, sometimes it's 25%, but we've always been able to get positive results. So we're here to support the program, and Chris and his group have done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Michael Hess, Mitesh Smart, and Nate Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I wanted to speak in support of the ordinance, and I wanted to do that from 3 different perspectives. My first perspective is as a dad, and I believe that we need to protect our environment for future generations so that my kids and my kids' kids can all enjoy the city beautiful. And I think the best way to do that is through energy efficiency. And if you're not recording what you're doing, I don't know how you can claim to be energy efficient. So I think this is an important step. The second perspective I bring is that I am the president of the U.S. Green Building Council Florida, which is a nonprofit with about 1,000 members. And we do a lot of work with energy codes, which dictate how you have to design and construct buildings to save energy. But there really isn't anything out there from an operational perspective. And I've got about 20 years of experience in the built environment and energy efficiency, and have found that operations can be far more important than how we design and construct things. So it's always seemed like a gap to me that we require people to design buildings to be energy efficient, but we don't really care how they operate it. And so I think this ordinance has a chance to really help fix that. And one thing I will add about the U.S. Green Building Council is that we actually offer a free training class. So if you want to learn how to do benchmarking and energy audits, we'll actually teach you for free, and you'll see how easy it is. It'll make complying with this extremely easy. So if anyone wants free training, come see me. Third perspective that I wanted to bring is sort of my company perspective. I am a vice president with Panasonic, which is roughly an $80 billion company. And we have an extremely strong commitment to sustainability and energy efficiency. Most people think we just make appliances and TVs and stuff like that, but we're actually, in the U.S., we're actually in the real estate business, and we actually invest in developments and buildings. One of our projects right now is a 400-acre development in Denver, and the city of Denver is a great partner with us on that new community that is coming out of the ground right now. City of Denver is working on a very similar ordinance, and we had a Panasonic employee on the task force helping with that ordinance. I've always supported Chris on this particular one, and I think you're going to find a lot of great companies that support this type of work and want to work with cities that are really serious about energy efficiency. So I'm in favor, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mitesh Smart, Nate Boyd, and William Weinig.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor. So I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm also the vice president of ASHRAE for Central Florida. However, today I'm representing everybody in this room who pays taxes and also who pays the utility company for their power bills. So a few years back, our firm was hired by the city to perform ASHRAE level benchmarking for 35 of the buildings in the city. The ultimate goal was to see how the building's performance would change over time. At first, I was a little shocked when I saw the list of the buildings that the city gave us because some of the buildings were pretty new and some of the buildings were also LEED certified. Nevertheless, our engineers went through the analysis and the results were eye-opening. Buildings which were LEED certified within the last 5 years, their operational efficiency dropped 15 to 20%. Some of the buildings were even getting a C-. So even with excellent maintenance programs that LEED and other programs require, it's pretty evident that a building's performance drops over a period of time. So the positive side of benchmarking is once you find that out, you can actually go in and find out where you need to do fine tune-ups on your building. So a building's air conditioning and electrical system, it's basically like a large machine. It's made up of various chillers, pumps, air handlers, ducts, control sensors, and you don't need to be an engineer to know that as time goes on, machines, they don't perform as well as they did before, and they need some tune-up. So like we do maintenance on our cars. We do oil changes, we do brake pad changes. We do the same in our buildings. We do filter changes. We do belt changes. However, in our cars, to maintain the best efficiency, the vehicle manufacturers require that we do something above and beyond. We do some engine maintenance, engine diagnostics, and sensor calibrations on a continual basis, tune-ups. We don't do this for most of our buildings. So because of energy cost expenses are a simple tax write-off to most businesses and building owners, performing these tune-ups, they're not a priority. And therefore, they probably won't ever happen. However, on a large scale, like a city, a state, county, these small inefficiencies added up, they equate to very, very large power drains. So to help keep up with these power drains, the utility companies, they have an obvious result is they have to expand, they have to build, they have to make more power plants to keep up with this. And who ends up paying for that? It's us people, the taxpayers, and also the people who pay for the utility bills. So at the end of the day, we must start at the city level. We must start with commercial buildings. We must require these buildings to get the benchmarking so they can know where they need to get their tune-ups. And then it goes into a retro-commissioning process. If we don't make these tune-ups mandatory, history, like Chris has said, it's already proven that it's not going to result in a positive effect. So based on my own analysis, I'm very confident that this mandatory process is going to reduce energy waste, which is going to cost owners, building owners and taxpayers and customers of the utility companies several millions of dollars. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitesh. Nate Boyd, William Weinig.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Nate Boyd. I'm a professional engineer and an energy specialist at Hanson Professional Services. I'm an ASHRAE Central Florida Chapter Past President and currently serve as the Regional Chair for Government Advocacy in Florida, Central, and South America. Some of you may also remember my service as your former energy manager, who helped position the City Beautiful into the leadership role in energy efficiency. I begin my testimony today by speaking on behalf of ASHRAE. Formed in 1894, ASHRAE is a global nonprofit engineering society of over 55,000 members in more than 140 countries. Our members represent the breadth of professionals involved in the built environment, from consulting engineers to architects to manufacturers, representatives, and academics. At the public's request, we've written standards to guide building energy design, indoor air quality, thermal comfort, Legionellosis, as well as mandatory requirements for rating programs like this one. Our mission is to advance the arts and sciences of the built environment to serve humanity and promote a sustainable world. We are acknowledged experts on energy efficiency in buildings and have taken a lead role in increasing awareness about the major impact of buildings on our health, safety, and welfare. ASHRAE strongly endorses this ordinance. On a personal note, I was here on the ground floor of the city's venture into energy efficiency. You hired me in 2010 through the ARA grant to prove the business case for improving energy efficiency. Our efforts won numerous accolades from the Department of Energy and the EPA. We averaged a savings of 30% off the energy bills in the city buildings, with some achieving as high as a 60% reduction. The L. Claudia Allen Senior Center, we cut that bill 60% in that building, all within a reasonable payback. The purpose of today's hearing is to examine the city's role in greening buildings. Opposition demands that we make this program voluntary. We already did that 6 years ago through the Central Florida Energy Efficiency Alliance. After the first year of voluntary disclosure culminating in the Kilowatt Crackdown Awards, voluntary disclosure dried up. They stopped doing it. Yes, I used to be on the inside, but I and the rest of the ASHRAE community don't have a stake in this. wearing my Hansen hat, there's no business opportunities here. The engineering community's involvement through energy audits and commissioning has been replaced by allowing free assessments from OUC to count. And we still strongly support this ordinance because of its importance to the built environment. Mandatory benchmarking ordinances serve the same purpose that 90.1 based energy codes serve, improving buildings for human occupancy. They work. Look at New York. Look at the other cities where this has been up and running. And I'll leave with this. Personally, I don't believe in government intervention unless it becomes clear that without it, people will suffer. Our hunger and our thirst for energy draws on finite resources. There is no planet B. And even if there was, Elon Musk hasn't figured out a way for us to get there yet. I happen to like Orlando's climate, and I don't really want it to get any hotter than it already is. Oh, and vote no on 1. Thank you.
William Weinig, Jeff Porvides, Matt Cox.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you very much for your time. I'm an engineer, like a couple of the previous guys, and I'm also a recent green. I just started a green business, and part of that green business is a carbon-based business, and part of that is I have the first LEED Platinum building in Seminole County, so I'm actually a building owner as well. I've been a partner in a consulting engineering business in Central Florida pretty much my whole life. And as part of that, we've done a lot of what we call retro commissioning. We've probably been doing that for about 25 years, and it's amazing how many buildings that we've run across that have really all the right stuff in the building, but perform poorly. Talking about commissioning, if you think about driving your car with your foot kind of, on the gas pedal all the way to the floor, and I control my speed with the brake, obviously that's not the most efficient way to go from point A to B. The weird thing we found over, all the years we've been doing commissioning, we found that our buildings pretty much operate the same way. They have all the right stuff, but they're operating poorly, and it's because the gas pedal's all the way on and we've got the brake on. When we start looking at these buildings, we see that we start implementing some changes. You've heard some examples earlier, that paybacks many times are less than a year. So the things that we have to do to make our buildings perform better are not really costly things to do. Those changes that we make are not only good for the tenants of those buildings, the operators of those buildings. It's not only good for the buildings owners, but it's good for our community. And it's actually probably the bigger picture thing is it's pretty good for the planet Earth, if you start been hearing. Now, as an engineer, we've always been kind of like, we've always been these really green engineers. I'll tell you a little personal story. Many years ago, I had one of my clients say, so what do you do? He was implying that he's going to do the same thing, the same kind of stuff that I do. I started looking at my own life, and the bummer was we really weren't doing much a long time ago. So I started reflecting a lot on my life, and I realized that I was a pretty big consumer. Our firms were pretty big consumers. Our buildings were consumers. I started looking at all the things that we do and what we could do to make it better. And obviously, we started to make a change. This was many, many years ago. We started employee programs to help our employees buy cars. We started recycling. We started buying green energy. We did many, many things. And at home, I installed solar systems. As an engineer, I installed every kind of gadget you could think in my house. My wife let me do it. But we cut our carbon footprint by over 95%. That's pretty profound. And I tell you, it all started with one thing. It started with me looking at the numbers and me measuring my impact. So measurement's really, really, really important. Now, I would note as a building owner, this is not necessarily a bad thing. In our engineering office, we have a lease, and we were able to convince our landlord that we would extend our lease by 10 years above and beyond what it was if we could move our building to a better position and performance. and the landlord paid for some changes. Our building is now going to become a LEED, it's very close to becoming a LEED Gold building, and we extended our lease, so the landlord is super happy. So it's not necessarily a bad thing for building owners, it's actually a good thing for us building owners. The bottom line, I'd like to say, measurement, benchmarking is really the epiphany. Measurement is really it's the holy grail, it's the great awakening, it's the only way we're going to make the right move forward. And I hope you leaders and I hope the leaders of Orlando can make that bold move to a better tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Jeff Bertavides, Matt Cox, Michael Aller.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Jeff Benavides, and I'm the Vice President of Innovation and Partnerships for 15 Light Years. We're a building science and testing contractor here locally. I'm also a board member of the Regional U.S. Green Building Council, and I sit on the Policy and Advocacy Committee for both USGBC statewide and ASHRAE Central Florida. I've been involved with the city's GreenWorks initiative since its inception, since 2006, and have been involved in various programs as I've worked with many of you on. Before I joined the team in 15 Light Years, I spent 5 years as Energy and Sustainability Manager for Wyndham Worldwide, which owns and manages 7,400 buildings worldwide. And those resort properties throughout the world, the company leadership in 2009 decided to set aggressive energy efficiency goals. And those targets crossed those 10 million square feet of existing building space, and it actually enabled a 20% reduction for until 2020. So that goal still stands for that company. Benchmarking to achieve those goals allowed us to track and measure savings of over $3.2 million in just 3 years. Properties in every city that have similar mandatory energy benchmarking ordinances. I personally manage the reporting of 11 properties in that group, with benchmarking requirements in Seattle, Washington, New York City, and San Francisco. And by going through this process, each property saw significant energy savings and was able to identify improvements and saving hundreds of dollars. The reporting process was incredibly simple and easy for us, as we had committed to voluntary benchmarking prior to any mandatory requirements. So it was as simple as logging into our profile, choosing the group that we were going to share to, and submitting that profile for review. The cities and utility frequently set reminders, held in-person and online training, and city staff and volunteers were always available for help. There was even 1 year where we missed the reporting deadline for one of the new resorts that we had taken on, but at the time, we explained the situation to the city and the utility, and they helped us get access to the right kind of data that we needed. And we avoided any fees and fines by collaborating with them as well as we will do here in our city. So they, like our city, were not looking to profit off of the mistake like the opposition might think. They were there to help us and guide us to do what's best for everyone and get the benchmarking accomplished and the goals met. The partnerships needed and the support here in the community is already existing, and it's ready to serve. We have a coalition of volunteers, industry experts, and bright mechanical and electrical engineering students at Valencia, UCF, and Seminole State College. So I encourage you all to bring back the momentum that we had in 2011 and 2010, as Chris mentioned earlier in the presentation, with the kilowatt crackdown, and get prepared together for the reporting requirements. We can and will do this together. I will close with a quote published last month by the San Francisco Building Owners and Managers Association, where they have had much more of aggressive mandatory ordinance than we do here. They've had that in place since 2010. The executive vice president states proudly, "We hope that our achievements will be an example for other communities because we have very far to go." So let's follow in their footsteps in order to increase return on investment of your assets by knowing about and deploying every possible savings. We can only know about these possible energy and monetary savings if we benchmark, and if the properties I've worked with in the past are any indication, we clearly can't afford to not benchmark. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Cox, Michael Aller, Marty Sullivan.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is Matt Cox. I am the Chief Operating Officer at the GreenLink Group. I'm here to express our strong support for the Orlando Building Energy and Water Efficiency Strategy. We support this policy because it will reduce energy and water use, It will create local jobs and economic development, and it will keep Orlando a world-class leader and a competitive city. The GreenLink Group is a clean energy technology analysis and consulting firm built upon an award-winning suite of policy analysis tools. GreenLink evaluates the integration of a wide range of clean energy options, including energy and water efficiency in buildings. We help our clients identify the benefits, costs, and strategies to incorporate clean energy solutions, achieve savings, and establish social value. I'm here today because I know about energy efficiency and city policy, having gotten my PhD in the area from Georgia Tech and having published over 40 scientific papers on the topic. I've analyzed city energy policy in many cities, including Tampa, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Orlando, and others. I've also designed and led the implementation of building energy and water efficiency policy in Atlanta. Wasteful energy use creates pollution which harms public health. Orlando can improve quality of life and achieve improved public health outcomes by slashing energy waste. Analysis shows that implementing this policy will bring $64 million in public health benefits to the people of Orlando. Experience in other cities shows that this type of approach is highly cost-effective. Orlando's specific research shows that the benefits outweigh the costs to the private sector by more than a 5-to-1 margin, showing that highly profitable win-win opportunities are broadly available. In Atlanta, I helped identify over $1 million in energy savings through the benchmarking components of our similar ordinance. Those savings sparked an interest in additional energy-saving activities through energy audits and performance contracts, which are now over $100 million in value. And that was just in the last 2 years. This policy sets the table for a better-informed marketplace to lead in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and achieving citywide energy consumption goals. The energy savings would avoid 1.1 million metric tons of CO2 emissions, keep 900 million gallons of water in the watershed, and help reach the GreenWorks Orlando goal of reducing citywide energy consumption by 25%. On behalf of the GreenLink Group and good policy proposals everywhere, I urge you to vote in favor of the Orlando Building Energy and Water Efficiency Strategy. Please vote to keep Orlando a world-class leader and a competitive city. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Aller, Marty Sullivan, Stephen Jamison.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioners, for having this important debate today. My name is Mike Aller. I'm Executive Director and CEO of Energy Florida. And I'm here to express Energy Florida's strong support for the Orlando Building Energy and Water Efficiency Strategy, and we support this because it will help support strong economic development here in our community and across Central Florida, as well as helping keep Orlando a world-class leader and a competitive city here in Florida, in the Southeast, and around our country and around the world. Energy Florida is an industry-led nonprofit association that works closely with our regional energy technology industry. Our member companies and partner institutions are major employers here in the city of Orlando, as well as active participants in many of the local initiatives in regional economic development and sustainable development, such as Central Florida Clean Cities, Green Destination Orlando, and many others. I'm here to testify because I work personally with many companies involved in energy-efficient building technology and know the impact that increasing access to data and monitoring verification have to reducing operational costs for our businesses and our commercial real estate community, as well as creating clean, well-paid, skilled jobs here in the city of Orlando and throughout the state of Florida. We are very closely involved with a number of groups that have done research on the scale of the job creation and job development here in Florida. In advanced energy alone, there are over 140,000 jobs in Florida across our state, with more than $6 billion in revenue in the advanced energy sector. These are numbers which were put together by the AE Institute and BW Research in a report which was issued in July. So this is numbers for just last year. Just within energy efficiency, we have over 100,000 jobs here in Florida, 106,000, which is more than 3/4 of our total in energy. So that just goes to show how much the built environment, how much energy efficiency is important, not only in the economic impact, but also in the job creation impact that we have here in Florida already. We have almost 13,000, 12,800 jobs here in Metro Orlando, specifically on energy efficiency. And We have a great resource and opportunity, as Dr. Cox just talked about, to increase those numbers here going forward. I especially also want to identify that with the building energy and water strategy, there's no cost to comply with the program. Compliance is entirely through the free web-based Energy Star tool and free energy audits provided by OUC. So there are no out-of-pocket expenses beyond the staff cost, as was outlined before. And there are also no performance requirements. So there's no requirement for a building to make an investment or improve their performance. They only need to know what they're doing and where they are. And realistically, if you don't know where you are, you really can't do anything about making any improvement anyway. There is a feasible timeline. You know, we have 1 year of voluntary compliance for participation, another year before you have requirement for transparency, and 5 years before you have to actually do an audit. So you have quite a lot of time to integrate this as a building owner. And there are quite a number of financing options available. We work with a number of different financing institutions which offer a variety of different options, whether it's energy performance contracts, PACE, a variety of other energy efficiency programs through OUC or other providers which can help provide and support whatever financial cost a building owner might want to take to make improvements. So on behalf of Energy Florida and the Central Florida Energy Technology Community, I urge you to vote in favor of the Orlando Building Energy and Water Efficiency Strategy, and let's keep Orlando a world leader. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Marty, Steve Jameson, and Lucy Smith.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I represent the League of Women Voters of Orange County, the largest league in the country. Our league strongly endorses the Building Energy and Water Efficiency Strategy. We have laid out our position in a letter that's in your packet, and I would ask you to consider our position, and I strongly ask you to vote in favor of this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Steve, Lucy, and then Clayton Ferrara.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer, City Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak today. I'm the General Manager of the Mall at Millennia here in Orlando, and we appreciate the great partnership that we've had with the city, how great the city has been over the years in supporting the business community, and named one of the best, most competitive cities in the United States recently. We're doing a pretty good job here in Orlando. In fact, a great job in Orlando. My company and I believe in sustainability. We believe in being green. We believe in the concept of the Booze Project in theory. Where we struggle with this are in the mandates and in the reporting of the data and making it public. We believe that we should all be doing our part. If we want to make a citywide effort, it should be a citywide effort. We're just restricting it to about 854 buildings. It's a program that maybe should become citywide. Maybe our city could become the blueprint for the rest of the United States. The task force that I've heard a few times mentioned, the Greenworks Task Force, I've spoken to a couple people who are on that task force, and the message that was conveyed to me that the discussions were simply talked about in a very, very broad level. They were not discussed with any sort of mandates, any sort of public reporting of any kind. That was never discussed. And when the original draft ordinance came out, those members did not receive a copy of that draft ordinance, as I'm told, to be able to review it and compare it to the conversations they had in those meetings. I do think we should start with some sort of a pilot program. I'd be willing to volunteer to be part of that program. I think that we could potentially get more and more businesses involved. We're doing our part, and other businesses can be doing theirs. I think that we should be dangling a carrot and not wielding a stick. A number of years ago, the lodging industry faced some difficult challenges with a number of associations saying they may not have conventions at their properties if they didn't meet certain building requirements. Well, the hotels decided to make changes, but the market drove it, not the government. I'd also like to say specifically about my center is that our common area, which is the area that we control, is a very, very small percentage of the total leasable area of the mall. And while I would like to be able to think that all of our stores would do their part, I can only ask. I can't compel. Our leases don't require them to. And we'll make an effort. But we can do the best job in our common area, but our scores may be disproportionately different if our stores are not able to do the kind of energy efficiency that we would all want to see. So I would like to think they could do it, but I don't know that they can. And it makes it very, very difficult because we want to be good corporate citizens. We are doing our part. We will continue to do our part. We just don't think the mandates are appropriate at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Lucy Smith, Clayton Ferreira, and Allison Peters.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you very much for having us here today. My name is Lucy Smith, and I'm the Senior Property Manager for East Group Properties, a publicly traded REIT. We own and manage over 54 million square feet. I personally manage just over 3 million square feet here of industrial properties in Orlando. I'm the co-chair of the BOMA International Industrial Committee, and I'm the immediate past president of the BOMA Southern Region. BOMA International supports voluntary benchmarking and encourages its members to benchmark their buildings at least annually using the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Also, other similar programs that they have in place, like the BOMA 360, EER, 7-Point Challenge, which everyone here is familiar with. As I'm sure you're aware, in 2011, DOE announced it was developing a voluntary asset rating program. The asset rating program is intended to complement Energy Star, with Energy Star providing the operational rating and the new program providing a score on the building's asset rating by examining the building's systems. DOE launched a pilot program in the spring of 2012 and is now working to fine-tune that program. DOE has also launched the Buildings Performance Database. The BPD has data for over 50,000 buildings, sufficient data to conduct analysis of more than 15 common retrofit measures, including commercial building retrofits in HVAC controls, lighting, economizers, and windows. BOMA continues to support the development of these types of voluntary programs and tools, but continues to fight against mandating their use. East Group Properties voluntarily benchmarks our buildings in EPA's Energy Star Portfolio Manager and has for the past 3 years. Additionally, we benchmark utilizing the BOMA EER and our designated BOMA 360 buildings. The Southridge Commerce Park in Orlando was actually the first industrial park in the nation to receive the BOMA 360 designation. As I said earlier, we also participated in the 7-Point Challenge with the City of Orlando. Currently, there are 6 million plus square feet of office and 13.4 million plus industrial square feet being voluntarily benchmarked with the BOMA EER in Central Florida and Orlando alone. I tell you all of this to assure you that we take sustainability very seriously, and we understand the purpose and the need for benchmarking and doing all of the right things to make our buildings efficient and sustainable and to reduce our carbon footprint. We are not opposed to this project, to this ordinance. However, we do have concerns. We think the plan is headed in the right direction, but it's not ready for implementation at this very moment. The plan is, as it's proposed now, in our opinion, it has 4 challenges. Number 1, the benchmarking being mandatory, with a fine levied for non-participation of non-exempt buildings. Through BOMA 360, BOMA EER, EPA's Energy Star, the Kilowatt Crackdown, and the 7-Point Challenge, and all of the other programs we've participated in, we've proven we're more than willing to do the right thing and do it voluntarily. If we're seeking exemptions, the process for this is cumbersome and a burden on the building owner and the manager to receive. Which leads to number 2. Due to the privacy rules and practices of certain tenants that we have, obtaining complete information required for benchmarking is not always possible. and this is their prerogative. There's no law that says that they or the utility provider has to provide us with their energy consumption data, and there shouldn't be. Utilizing a standard metric or a default value, as it's referred to, for a building that cannot provide whole building data is an unfair practice for buildings which have changed their typical use, whether partially or in whole. Industrial buildings being used for a higher percentage of office space, for example. Also changing residential to office. Number 3, ratings being made public. Brokers and investors will start using this public data against building owners and leading customers to other properties, even though the building may be well suited for the tenant and capable of operating at minimal consumption, or if it is an older building, incapable of upgrades. This will be very bad for the owner, the community, and the economy. Investors will stop voluntarily buying older properties and doing the right thing if there's a chance that they'll be overlooked for a brighter, shinier object with a rating number attached to it. The last item is oversight. This program, an ordinance, is going to require a large amount of oversight. Though we realize that the Director of Sustainability doesn't have sole oversight, we totally get that. The position has been given a huge amount of latitude and discretion on decisions related to individual buildings participating in the program. The Greenworks Committee will need to be reactivated because it is my understanding, as was stated earlier, that they've not been active in a while, and the subcommittee was just added to the ordinance wording last night, the Energy and Green Building Subcommittee. It would be our hope that the committee would include representatives of the commercial real estate industry. I appreciate your time and listening to our concerns. We are headed in the right direction, and I'm encouraged that our city is joining in these energy efficiency programs and efforts, and I look forward to hopefully participating on the Oversight Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Clayton Ferrara, and then Allison Peters, and then Anna Long.
Good afternoon. Mayor, commissioners, my fellow citizens, it's really a pleasure for me to be here today. I'd like to begin by just saying that this is a very exciting moment for Orlando's history. One of the things that I believe was not mentioned here today was that if this does pass, it adds a sustainability chapter to the municipal code of the city. And when it comes down to it, that is the right side of history for Orlando to be on. In the type of work that I do, I'm the executive director of a United Nations accredited NGO. I travel and work all over the world with people, and I'm proud wherever I go that when asked where I'm from, I say I'm from Orlando. And though I was not born here, it is certainly the place where I became myself. I'm an alum of Rollins. I'm a winner of their Young Alum of Significant Distinction Award. And my achievements here have come because of the wonderful city and the wonderful people that it is filled with. So when looking forward for the city, it's important for us to understand that a move like this not only puts Orlando on the right side of history, but it also starts with a policy that creates this municipal code. And from there, it can be added to, it can be further expanded, and continue to make Orlando a leader in where we know we all want it to be. To speak for some young people, because I am under the age of 30, when I look to my colleagues and I speak to them of why is it that you stay in Orlando? It's a decision that every young person has to make. We have some of the greatest schools in the whole state here. UCF, the second largest institute in the country. Every young person who is educated here has to make the decision, will I stay or will I go? And I'll tell you increasingly, the reasons that people list of why they stay are decisions that have been made based on sustainability of the city, our beautiful parks, our increasing public transit, our bike trails, the promise of complete streets, more and more for people to be able to get around in multiple ways of transportation, and not locked in like so many other cities, isolated and in cars all the time. So this is a part of that, and it's a major step forward for the city and its sustainability plan overall, and I strongly endorse this policy. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good
Allison Peters, the Executive Director for BOMA Orlando. I have been in real estate for almost 33 years, 18 years in downtown Orlando, with 15 years with BOMA as the Executive Director. I would like to take this time to thank the city for all their hard work with the Pulse shooting. You guys did an admirable job, and I think other cities can learn from that. I constantly share with our members, stay vigilant, see something, and absolutely you've got to say something when you see something. So I do applaud you for all that you've done. I would like to go back in a little bit of history. In 2009, we, BOMA, presented Buddy Dyer and Mayor Richard Crotty our 7-point challenge. And those 7 points were, number one, to continue towards a goal to decrease energy and consumption by 30% across our portfolios in 2012, as measured against an average building. Number two, at least once a year, benchmark our energy performance, water usage through EPA's Energy Star benchmarking tool and share results with BOMA. Number three, provide education to our managers, engineers, and others involved in building operations to ensure that the equipment is properly installed, commissioned, and maintained and utilized. Number four, perform an energy audit and or retro commissioning to our buildings and implement low risk, low cost, cost-effective strategies to improve the energy efficiency with high returns. Number five was to extend the equipment life by improving the operations and maintenance of building systems and ensure equipment is operating as designed. Number six, through leadership, positively impact our community and our planet by helping to reduce our industry's role in global warming. And number seven, position yourself and the industry as leaders and solution providers to owners and tenants seeking environmental and operational excellence. And from that challenge, both mayors signed the letters accepting the challenge along with many of our members. And from that, in July of 2009, the Central Florida Energy Alliance Efficiency Alliance was established, which led to the kilowatt crackdown. The kilowatt crackdown, which many of our owners and managers signed on to, was a competition at the time. The competition ended, and we kept hearing that kilowatt 2.0 was coming. We've not seen 2.0 yet. So at that time, it was a competition. So there was a start and there was an end to that. We believe in sustainability, and our members are stewards of sustainability and look at all feasible ways to improve their buildings. Our building owners pride themselves on green, whether by changing out equipment, recycling, or undertaking lighting retrofits and more. They have to stay on top of issues in order to stay in the game in order to lease their buildings. We applaud the efforts of this ordinance, and we believe it should be open, fair, and transparent in its applications and its operations. We did last night get the revision about forming of the Energy and Green Building Subcommittee to the Green Works Advisory Committee. But I guess my question is, was the Green Works Advisory Committee in place when this ordinance was being, and has this been vetted through them? So that was one of my questions. In the current language, the approval, discretion, and the director is stated in 13 places. And this advisory subcommittee, if it is set up with this ordinance, should be made up of professionals of the real estate industry and not the consultants who will glean to benefit from this ordinance. The ultimate decision of disclosure of buildings, operating data, and proprietary information about a real estate investment that contributes to jobs and taxes in our community should remain the right and the prerogative of the building owner. The market drives and will continue to drive the voluntary disclosure of energy performance data between owners and the marketplace, and especially if there was a voluntary program with incentives. Just like the kilowatt crackdown, there was an incentive. I know one of our members won, and they got some free energy maintenance for, I don't know if it was a year, I can't remember, it was back in 2009, but there was an incentive at the end of that. I would hate to see a mandatory disclosure of an Energy Star rating to a building due to factors such as older historic buildings that have made retrofits, but due to other factors, maybe they have a single pane window that they can't change out because of the historic, and it can't be changed. Also, if there is a building that has higher tenant energy users, such as research and development, it draws more power and it might be judged unfairly. When whole building data is not available, it's simply not available. and especially with buildings who have triple net leases. Those buildings should be exempt without them having to use a default value for the 3 or less meters. Will that make that building better? Will it make it worse with that default value? We don't know because we don't have that true energy bill to go by. Why are we trying to pass a city ordinance when the city utility provider, who is the keeper of the information, cannot provide to the owners the information they need? Chris mentioned the audits are free through OUC. What happens in 5 years when OUC doesn't have enough manpower to perform these audits? An ASHRAE level 2 audit could run between 12 and 15 cents a square foot. For a 50,000 square foot building, that's $6,000 for that small building. Why not a pilot program to work with the owners who are currently benchmarking to perfect the reporting system?
Allison, you need to wrap up.
Okay. We ask that we can help you identify buildings, and we look for the city to work on the language and the mandatory requirements, keeping in mind the privacy issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anna Long, Brendan Dudekine, and Paul Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Anna Long. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Dean Mead, located at 420 South Orange Avenue, Suite 700, Orlando 32801. I'm not here representing any particular client today, but rather as somebody who has worked in the area of environmental for over 25 years. I know I don't look it, but it's true. As Allison before me, I would like to applaud the city and the staff for working towards a laudable goal, a goal. We're not there yet. And the 3 areas that I believe, having participated in the 4 out of the 5 stakeholder meetings that need some more attention, are as follows. The ordinance, as Allison and Steve mentioned, placed mandatory criteria on property owners. I had previously worked at a company that participated voluntarily on the kilowatt crackdown. We were not members of BOA at the time. We just got involved with the program because we heard of its voluntary nature. And to be very honest with you, it was market driven. We thought if we could put at the bottom of our letterhead that we were kilowatt crackdown entities awarded by the city and county, what a good thing that would be. And guess what? It was. But it was voluntary. And it did have a beginning, and it did have an end. So to infer that it was a volunteer program where people just ceased volunteering, that's not true. There was no more program to participate in. The incentives were great. An award hanging in your lobby, it does a lot to drive business when your clientele is looking for those green vendors and or green firms to represent them. Secondly, the authority and powers delegated to a single individual without checks and balances is extremely arbitrary. As an example, as mentioned, 13 places within the current ordinance, sole power and discretion lies within one person, the director. This isn't done for any other ordinance that I'm aware of. There's checks, there's balances. And the only place that you can appeal to another place or another board is if you are ultimately fined, you get to appeal to the CEB. These types of ordinances really ought to be vetted from beginning to end with an advisory board, similar to a PNC or a DRC, a Development Review Committee, where you bring things before them. They're looking at the operation, they're looking at the technology, the feasibility of implementation. That shouldn't lie in a person. Finally, the statistics provided, in particular regarding the number of meetings and presentations conducted in order to get this ordinance before you, they're somewhat inflated. Chris mentioned 5 stakeholder meetings that he held. Of those 5, 3 were called by the stakeholders in reaction to. So we were invited in as an afterthought. The good news is everybody rallied, and we all see the need. We all see the good. We all see the want. I just feel really, really strongly that you could have the cooperation of an entire group of people that you don't have right now at the table with you, as opposed to coming along begrudgingly. And I think all it's going to take is a little more time. Thank you.
Brendan Dedekind, Paul Johnson, Jackie Rizzuto.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good afternoon, fellow citizens. I'm Brendan Dedekind. I live in Maitland, Florida. I'm 40 years old, but I'm a millennial wannabe. I come before you today in a personal capacity, but I'm also a board member of NAIOP, and I am also the Vice President and Market Officer for Prologis in Central Florida. We own and operate 5 million square feet of warehouse space in this market, which is approximately 40 to 45 buildings. Under the current ordinance as proposed, most of our buildings are exempt because the tenants get their utility bill, so we have no way to report that information. If the tenants give that information to us, we'd gladly report it, and we'd go through that process. From everything I've heard from most of the consultants today, the real benefit comes from the commissioning, which is kind of bringing the doctor into the house and looking at what's going on in your house. The benchmarking portion, which gives you the score on Energy Star, is somewhat meaningless. You get a score between 1 and 100, and if your score is 50, that means you are average for buildings of comparable use in the Southeast. It tells you nothing, right? If OUC would like to come and do a free energy audit of some of our buildings, I'd gladly take that and see how we can improve. I do want to say at Prologis, we have one of only 2 LEED Silver certified warehouses in Central Florida. Our current internal policy is to change out all of our warehouses to LEED lighting when we do an upgrade. So we are probably ahead of the curve on what we're actually doing in our practices. However, this ordinance will add unnecessary manpower constraints for us. It's about 9 weeks worth of work if you assume 8 hours per building, like Chris said. I do want to applaud Kevin and Chris for all the work they've done in collaborating with us till this point. I'm just a little disappointed that it's kind of been rushed through at the finish line when there are still gaps in the ordinance as proposed. An example, we have 1 building, 1 tenant. That building would be required to report under this ordinance. We would have no way to report it because the tenant can say, no, I'm not giving you that information. We'd have to provide a reasonable effort to try and report it. Then we'd have to come in front of the Board of Commissioners or the director at some point in that process, say, look, we've tried to conform, we can't. They could say, we don't think you did a reasonable effort, here's your fine, try better next time. So there is still work to be done. We don't want the weakest ordinance in the country. We want the best ordinance in the country. And I applaud the city for what they've done so far and hope that we'll continue to work on it before we pass an ordinance that still has gaps in it. Thank you for your time.
Paul Johnson, Jackie Bizzuto, and Ed Trimble.
Mayor Dyer, City Commissioners, thank you all very much, and thank you for all that you do. My name is Paul Johnson. I'm a second-generation Orlandoan, so I'm proud of all that you guys do, and I'm proud of this conversation that we're having, actually. I also chair the BOMA Orlando Sustainability Team. The purpose of our sustainability team is to identify and address opportunities as well as threats to achieving sustainable best practices in commercial building management. As a building services contractor, I'm with the United States Service Industries, I will tell you that I see efforts every day on the parts of building managers to operate as efficiently as possible. It makes economic sense to do so. It's interesting because I really believe that in so many ways, and we've already heard it today, we're all on the same side of the ball with this issue. We all want to be known as sustainable. We all want to be sustainable. Makes good sense. It's how we get there. It makes all the difference. The ordinance that's being discussed, as it's written, provides specific demands on building managers that in some cases may or may not be readily achievable. At the same time, it provides a great deal of discretion to the director in how those demands might be measured or even met. As a committee seeking best practices in sustainability, we believe that attention must be given to replacing discretion with visible guidelines before an ordinance can be effectively completed or enacted, much less enforced. We believe that we should develop the task force first. Let the task force be a part of this. We're close. We're on the 10-yard line, guys, but let's get it done right. Let's don't get sloppy in the last 10 yards and wind up having some folks just throwing up, willingness to pay a fine rather than going that last little bit. Let's make this something that works for everybody. And I want to wholeheartedly agree with the comment that was just made. We don't want to be the weakest. We want to be the best. This is Orlando. We are the best. Let's demonstrate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jackie Bizzuto, Edna Trimble, Mary Dillard.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Jackie Bizzuto. I am a partner at Lowndes, Drostick, Doster, Cantor, and Reed. I am here speaking not on behalf of a specific client like Anna, but after having practiced in the commercial real estate area here for 28 years and represented many clients, and actually looking at this, and I do want to say I am wholly and 100% in favor of sustainability. I grew up in the Virgin Islands, and when you grow up on a 30-square-mile island, you understand water, and you understand the lack of water, and you understand energy and the lack of it. So I am 100% in favor of sustainability and getting there. I'm not going to take very long because much of what I wanted to say has been said by other people. I do agree that everyone has worked extremely hard together to try to get this ordinance to the place it needs to be. I do think that if you read it, you realize that there are still parts of it that need to be fleshed out, and it's not quite ready. I think it's almost there. I agree, Chris and Kevin have worked hard on that, but I do also agree that this group and the group that is called stakeholders who have met over and over again saw that ordinance for the first time on Friday and have rushed to try to get together and try to flush out the last few items that we've seen, but it's just not there yet. And I would ask you as commissioners, because I'm going to be one of those people that's called on by clients to help try to figure out how to comply with it, and it's not, I don't think, in a position yet where we can be there. So I would ask you to consider delaying somewhat longer so that we can get it correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Edna Trimble, Mary Dillard, Joe Torito.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mayor. My name is Edna Trimble. I live in College Park. I'm a third-party manager. I have my own small business here in Orlando. I actually moved from South Florida to Orlando for a lot of opportunity. It's been a blessing for me. I'm also the Vice President of BOMA currently. We have over 300 members. And as Lucy and Allison had stated, we do benchmark on a regular basis. The majority of our building managers do benchmark because we have awards that require that. We are sustainable. We do like green. We do think there are some problems with the ordinance as it is written. A couple of my concerns is this was published quite some time ago. Some of the folks that are on here are real estate folks in the community, and a letter wasn't specifically addressed to the city. It was a national letter saying they're green or they're sustainable. It didn't say, City of Orlando, we like your ordinance. One of the other things that's a key issue for me as far as transparency and reporting is I represent 14 buildings that are all owned by small business owners, mom and pops as I call them. Wonderful people. They don't have a lot of money. They did invest in the area. They do pay taxes. But putting a number on them when the building's from the 80s, when they're not going to make a 50, and you're just going to put out there, I'm a 40, and not why I'm a 40, because I'm an old building or I'm a historic or I've got a high energy user, is a problem. Because if they're going to go sell that building and you have one of the brokers go and say, here's the buildings, oh, let's not go look at that, it's a 40, but we're not telling them why, because it's got high energy use, it's got the Citrus Club on it with, a lot of power going on, it's got a pharmacy in it that's got high energy use with conveyor belts and 24-hour shifts and freezers. That's an issue. I think we're for green, we're for sustainability, but we need to look at this and get our group together. The stakeholders meetings, I went to the first two. It was primarily third-party vendors that could gain revenue from this. It was not the real estate community, the people who own property. So I would ask you to look at this again and let's really tidy it up to make a good partnership and make it effective. Thank you.
Mary Dillard, Joe Torito, Kane Morris Webster.
Good afternoon. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you to Chris and everyone else that has worked so hard for the sustainability and the energy project. I am a property manager with MB Real Estate, and I manage medical office buildings in and around Orlando. Many of our tenants are triple net tenants, meaning that they do get their own electric and water bills. We don't see them. We have tried to benchmark certain buildings, and we have gone to our tenants requesting that information. And because of either privacy issues or we've got the HIPAA, they don't want anybody to have anything to do with anything related to their practice. We also do have tenants that have the endoscopy labs that require a lot of water, a lot of electric. Also, I am concerned with our tenants being the triple net, that when I looked at the ordinance that was just delivered last night via email, we saw the redrafting of certain parts of it. Like I said, my building owners will not be able to get the electric meters. Granted, most of our buildings do have more than 3 meters, and I do understand that OUC is working on getting some sort of ability to get us that information. But until then, it says that default values as provided by the US EPA Energy Star program. What are they? I need to be able to look at my owner and say, this is what we're going to be judged on. On buildings that we do have access to that information, we have Energy Star on our doors. Our building owners are very involved in wanting to be sustainable buildings. One of our buildings, actually, they participated in the OUC lighting retrofit program that was offered. We are continually putting in our budgets that we want to trade or change out HVAC units even before their useful life is over, because we see, well, this is an old HVAC unit. We want to switch it over to more energy conservative type of units. So our building owners are very involved. They want green energy. It is market driven. Tenants do want to be in buildings that are energy conservative. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Joe Torito, Kane Morris Webster, Kathy Carter.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Joe Torito. I own several buildings here in Central Florida. I also own Torito Electric, Torito Information Systems, and Torito Green Energy. I'm a professional electrical engineer, a state-certified electrical contractor, a member of the Florida Building Commission Electrical Technical Advisory Committee, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors at BOMA. I have the largest privately owned fleet of electric vehicles in the state, maybe in the Southeast. My company just received bronze recognition in the Green Destination Orlando Workplace Challenge, so we're very proud of that. I'm a strong supporter of environmental sustainability, and we implement energy-saving programs for our clients in the commercial, industrial, and residential marketplace every day. I have concerns about this ordinance in spite of the goals that were presented here. I think the ordinance is about reporting, and it's about reporting benchmarking results. And my concern is that these benchmarking results really don't do anything to inform the public of energy use of a building. This ordinance places all the liability for this reporting on the building owner. But unless the building is owner-occupied, the tenant controls both the information required for reporting and the utility usage in the building. So there's no obligation in this ordinance or penalty for the tenants to cooperate in this process or reduce any energy usage. The Energy Star Portfolio Manager benchmarking tool and the Energy Star score really doesn't provide valuable information to the marketplace. The Energy Star score has been falsely, in my opinion, compared to nutritional information on food packaging or miles per gallon on a car. But an energy score of 50 doesn't help a tenant determine what their water use is going to be or their energy use is going to be. It really doesn't tell them how their use of the building will be affected by the building itself. No matter how efficient the building infrastructure is, the tenant usage can result in an artificially low score that could damage the reputation of a stellar building. Additionally, the Energy Star scores can be negatively affected during times of high business productivity, because if a business is booming, they often work longer hours and increase their manufacturing or increase their production, which increases their energy consumption and detrimentally affects their score. So making an Energy Star score public may actually be detrimental in the marketplace. The Energy Star scores are only useful when analyzed by people who are aware of all the determining factors of the building that it relates to. Many of the other concerns have already been voiced, but I do have concerns with the language. The way the ordinance is written, there is a lot of discretionary authority that rests with the director. Some oversight should be considered. Thank you.
Kane Morris Webster, Kathy Carter, Gregory Torito.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing us to have time to speak. My name is Kane Morris Webster. I'm a resident here in the city of Orlando. I've also been working here for 16 years in the real estate community. I represent property owners. I also am the former ICSC Government Relations Chair, which stands for the International Council of Shopping Centers. I'm also a past president of CCIM, which I think they may be getting up to speak as well, which is the Certified Commercial Investment Member, both of them organizations here in the commercial real estate industry. I just want to say that our groups oppose this ordinance as it is written. We are excited to be a part of sustainability and efficiency here in Orlando, but we just feel the way that the ordinance is written, as many of my other fellow real estate constituents and colleagues here in the room have mentioned before. So I urge you guys to just hold off and let us come back to the table and really look at making this ordinance that we can all support. So thank you for your time.
Kathy Carter, Gregory Torito, Christy Alexander.
Hello, thank you, Mayor and the Commissioners, for allowing us to speak today. I am Kathy Carter. I'm a resident of Orlando for the last 9 years. I'm with Site Partners, who is a commercial real estate firm. We manage close to 2 million square feet, primarily in the city of Orlando. And I represent the owners of the buildings that I manage. There's 41 buildings that we have. As many of my colleagues have said, there is some loopholes in the ordinance. We are all for sustainability. I've done almost $3 million in construction projects and making sure that we are sustainability in our improvements that we do to the buildings for the owner to get them ready for our tenants. There is a loophole, though, where we do not receive the utility information. So there's no penalties or ordinance that's asking them to participate in this. And so I feel like we just need to take a little bit longer. I think we're heading in the right direction.
So asking who to participate, the tenants?
The tenants, yeah. That we just take a little bit longer to get more real estate people involved so that we have a voice in what we're trying to achieve for the city. Thank you.
Mayor, Commissioner.
With all due respect to folks that have not spoken yet, it's clear to me that while we all in this room want to do something, there's still a lot of moving parts. And certainly I'm willing to sit here and listen to everybody testify, but I'm going to make a motion that we table this so that we have more time to continue to talk about this topic.
Yes. Fourth.
Okay, here's my perspective. This is about as weak as you can get. It's 2 years out before anybody has to do anything other than provide information, and then it's 5 years. I might not even be mayor by the time anybody does the first energy audit under this. What I would prefer to do is vote it out on first reading and then hold second reading until we have an opportunity to let all the stakeholders, or everybody that is here, have an opportunity to have 1 or 2 more meetings to address. I'm not even sure what the holes are. I would think that the tenant issue would be solved by whatever the lease agreement is between the landlord and the tenant, rather than having us somehow have the tenants do something. But I'll do whatever you guys want.
Mayor, we can listen. I just, it's clear to me, that's why I made the motion, that there are a lot of folks that have some issues. So, but if you want to keep going, we'll keep going. I was trying to.
We've only got 20 more.
Okay, good.
Mayor, if I may say something, if you give me the opportunity. I believe the problem here is not the fact that there's people for sustainability and people not for sustainability. Everybody wants sustainability. So it's clearly, as Commissioner Gray said, it's a matter of sitting back at the table and figure out the kinks. It's not that hard. And for us to make a decision today when there's still so much out there that is not clear, I think it's not fair. I believe there's, from listening to both sides, I believe there's happy mediums we can achieve. So I would, just like Commissioner Gray, I would say let's table this and let's go ahead and.
I'm just not sure how to water it down much more than it's watered down now, quite honestly, but I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, that, again, both sides want sustainability, but it's how we get there, I think, is the real issue. And both sides have some very valid points, concerning this. And what we really need to do is just really bring it all together. And I think, Chris, you've done a great job in really pulling it all together here. But now we need to massage it a little bit more and just really make it happen, because we want the best ordinance. And that's what I've been hearing here today, too. We want the best ordinance.
Commissioner Sheehan?
Well, clearly if it's got this much discussion and issues and problems, it shouldn't have been brought forward, I don't think. I like to get things done before we get to this point, and we have a lot to work on. I'm definitely for sustainability. I'm the cistern girl, I'm the chicken girl, I'm the farming girl, I want all that stuff.
Don't forget compost girl.
I'm the compost girl, yeah, I forgot about the poop and the profits, that too. But, I don't like it. I think we have to figure out the tenant thing. I think that's what most folks are really, really concerned with, and I don't know how you do that, but I think we have some more work to do as well. So.
Okay, there's a motion to table and somebody seconded it. Now, Commissioner Gray made that motion, and I think Commissioner Ings seconded it. Yes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Commissioner Stewart?
Yeah, I was going to speak for a moment, if you don't mind. I think the problem that we have in this issue is process. And Mayor, I tend to agree with you in that getting it past first read and having second read at a moment undetermined gives us a path to have a solution. By tabling this discussion, I believe that we will sit here, my personal opinion is, we'll sit here 3 months from now, and there will be another group that will come in and will also say, well, I disagree with it, and so therefore, because of all the other reasons that may happen. If we agree with sustainability, my gut reaction is that before tabling this motion, we ought to try to consider passing it and leaving it to a moment undetermined. We don't have to have it at the next meeting, and then send those things back. If they come back with substantial change, we would just effectively substitute the second motion, next ordinance, back to the first and start over again. But it seems to me that if people in this room, and I think everybody is honest and sincere, if they're in this room and they want sustainability, by tabling the discussion, we don't bring them back to the table equally with the same level of incentive. That's the concern I have. And so the idea is that we table it, that we come back, we ask you to come to a meeting, you may or may not come. It may not go forward again. The political side is that, well, we'll just, if we don't like it, we'll just scream and yell and we'll stop it again. I think we all agree we ought to go forward. And so I tend to be a little bit like you, Mayor, and let's pass it. Let's make it a motion undetermined. We can determine at some time to come back 3 months from now or 2 months from now and force us to be in at least force our staff to be in a position to have to go out and get the responses we need so we can make this a better ordinance. So I'm against tabling it because I believe that we have, if people are sincere, and I believe they are, then we want them to come to the table. We want to bring them to the table to accomplish this task sometime. Implementation next year, 2018, 2020, look, that's just a matter of working out those procedures. But to me, the idea is, why would you come to the table a week from now if this is tabled? Why would you come again if, in fact, somebody could write, I say this kindly to people who did it, if somebody could write me several hundred standard letters without even my name on it and think that's going to have some impact on me. This is the impact that we want, and this is the impact that we want our staff to hear in a meeting to accomplish that task. Could we have done some things better? Yeah, probably. And so with that in mind, I'm voting against tabling because I want this to move forward in a way that's organized and in a way that will require people to come in. And then, if we can't come to consensus, let's just vote it down and start over again. I'm okay with that.
Okay. Why don't we do this? So everybody...
May I make a comment?
Hold on. Everybody that was in opposition and is in good faith opposition and actually does want a ordinance of this type that has reporting of with buildings, how about putting in writing to Chris in an email? And since you have just studied this and you're on top of your game today, are you not on top of your game, everybody that's here, because you've looked at the ordinance? But just listen to me for a second. Just put it in writing to Chris in the next couple of days, and I will personally review each and every one of your recommendations on how to make this not a weaker ordinance, but several of you said the best ordinance or a better ordinance. So let's put that in writing, and I will take a look, and I'm sure I'll provide copies to all of the other commissioners so they have an opportunity to do the same, because we do want to move forward in some way on our goals of being the most sustainable city. And buildings are one of the biggest issues that we have in terms of carbon. So if we don't make a dent here or do something, all the rest of the stuff we're doing just really doesn't count that much. Okay, everybody's light is lit up. Do you want to end it right here, or does everybody want to talk?
I would like to have a comment, sir.
That's good.
I would like to make a comment.
Okay. Commissioner Hill?
Yeah, since I was the only one that had made a comment.
You're the only one that hadn't.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. And I agree. I would like, and Chris did a phenomenal job with this ordinance, and I do want to see it move forward, right? And it's not even about the economic impact that it might make on the realtors or the developers. It's more so about the impact that it's going to make on the environment and generations of children and lives here in the city of Orlando to come. But I also want to make sure, and I spoke with Boma and Chris, we did have a meeting, that everybody's at the table. And I think by tabling this, we will come back with the best ordinance. I don't want to see it 3-4 months down the road. I want to see it come a little bit more sooner than that, Mayor. If we can get a timetable on that after everyone sit and back and speak with our DreamWorks department, because this is a very important ordinance for the citizens of Orlando. And that's all
Well,
I have to
we
say.
have a meeting, one more meeting in September, but we won't do it then, but we'll shoot for October.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
going to say, I was
Okay.
going to suggest to continue to a date certain,
Yeah.
rather than just tabling it, continue it to a date certain.
Chris, can we get the input accomplished by the first meeting in October? Okay, everybody good with that?
Great.
Mayor, I just want to say a couple of things. People will be back for this. There's no doubt about that. People will be back for this.
Or everybody has a seat at the table.
This is our future. So, and as the gentleman said, we want the best of the best, but we still have a motion on the table here. Are we tabling it or not? Because there was a motion done and there was a second.
No, I
so-
think we voted on that, but I didn't give Commissioner Stewart an opportunity to speak before we voted, so.
Well, if you allow me a moment, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to stick my head in front of Kyle. We went from a motion to table to a motion to a consensus to table to a time certain, which probably require us to take the motion off the table and revote to a time certain.
The mayor.
No, we tabled it.
Or do you just want to remove it, Mayor, and do it
It's our
somewhere?
intent to bring it forward again in
Right.
October.
You have that prerogative as mayor, but if we're going to vote, we got to vote right, I think.
The
So,
mayor
okay.
called the motion as passing, and the motion that was on the table was to table the item, which means you have a pending motion of approval and a second that is going to sit out there until you bring it back to city council.
Okay, and the recommended motion to table to a time certain requires a different
That
level
would
of.
require a separate motion.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I don't think we need to do that
Okay,
since
all
I
right.
set the agenda.
I'm okay. I'm just want to make sure we
stating
don't.
my intent to bring it forward in
Yeah.
October.
I just don't want somebody to come back and get us on parliamentary.
Mayor, I was going to ask, is this the kind of issue that would work in a workshop environment? Because when I made that motion, you could tell there's a lot of folks that just lack info and detail. They hear two sides. I think perhaps a workshop where Chris could get into the details and the other folks can say, this is what's wrong with it, this is what's
The
right
only
with
thing
it.
about a workshop is
Suggestion.
that generally we don't take public testimony at a workshop, and the workshop would have been the presentation that Chris gave before we
Gotcha.
started right here, in all
Okay.
probability.
Okay.
I'll think about what the best forum to bring it back will be. Appreciate everybody. You know what? It's a really good issue, and we're going to be the greenest city in America, and I appreciate everybody's attention level and interest, and that's what democracy is all about, right? All right, I'm going to give the people that don't want to stay for the other three ordinances 30 seconds to clear, and then we're going to do 3 or 4 more ordinances.
The other 4 ordinances.
Okay.
Eddie will sign it.
Hey, while he's doing that, he slips out.
Oh, that's the guy. Okay. Anybody that is here for the 501 budget hearing? That budget hearing will occur as soon as we complete the regularly scheduled meeting. I still have ordinances to do. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Glad to have you back. Yeah. Glad.
Yes.
Usually the budget meeting's a short one, but this one's been a lot.
Yeah.
All right, take care.
General appearance, Jose. General appearance. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you read the next ordinance? Hey, who are the students that were here? You three? Did you enjoy the meeting? You thought you were going to get out in 30 minutes, didn't you?
Yeah, they did.
Okay. You can come back for hearing number 2 if you want. Okay, Madam Clerk, read the third ordinance.
Mayor, we've had a lot of calls. The Valencia apparently has the requirement that that they come to a city council meeting. So
Right.
all fall, I think we'll be seeing some. All right. Ordinance 2016-69, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, relating to signs, amending Chapter 64 Orlando City Code to provide that certain privately owned venues may qualify as a regional facility for purposes of sign approval under Section 64.320 Orlando City Code, providing legislative findings and for severability, codification, correction of scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ing, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Is there anyone from the public who would like to testify on this matter? Discussion among commissioners. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 4, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2016-72, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, rezoning certain land generally located west of Northwest Moreland Drive, south of West Robinson Street, north of West Jefferson Street, and comprised of .53 acres of land, more or less, from the R2B 1 to 5 family residential district with the traditional city and Paramore Heritage Overlay Districts to the Planned Development District with the traditional city and Paramore Heritage Overlay Districts, providing a development plan and special land development regulations of the Planned Development District, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's errors, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Is there anyone from the public like to testify on this matter? Discussion among commissioners. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Ordinance 2016-75, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the Planned Development and Zoning District regulations for the Lake Nona Planned Development, generally located north of the Orange-Osceola County line, south of Dowden Road, east of Boggy Creek Road, and west of Narcoossee Road, comprised of 6,969 acres, more or less, amending the Planned Development District's development standards, site plans, and conditions of development, directing amendment of the official zoning map series, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's errors, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gray, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Anyone from the public wish to testify on this matter? Discussion among commissioners. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. And number 6.
Ordinance 2016-77, an ordinance granting to Peoples Gas System, a division of Tampa Electric Company, its successors and assigns a non-exclusive natural gas franchise agreement to use the public rights of way of the City of Orlando, Florida, and prescribing the terms and conditions under which said franchise may be exercised, making findings, providing an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ing, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Is there anyone from the public like to testify on this matter? Discussion among commissioners. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So the motion carries. That's the end of the official business of the Orlando City Council for today. At this meeting.